Welcome to the Race to Want Everything. Yes, we did miss a week. We apologise for that. And we're not exactly coming to you on time either this week. We are a little late. I'm blaming Knowlesy mainly for it, but
That's
it's
fair.
not like I was without blame. Anyway, whatever, we're here. We are still covering our pre-election coverage, and it's actually only a week and a half away till we go to the polls on May the 3rd. So we will have one more episode for you before the election, and then on the 3rd of May, round about, I'd say, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, we will be doing the Race that Decides for live coverage of the 2025 federal election. So, yeah, keep your ear out for that. I'll be posting all the links on the socials. So on Twitter, on Post, on Telegram, you'll be able to find all the links to those. I've got Knowlesy and Fluoride joining me today, and
Hello.
we've got a lot to cover. We've got 29 pages of prep, and I guess that's just what happens. I'm not covering the past 2 weeks. I'm only covering like the past 9 days or so, but it still makes for a hell of a lot of content. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
And
sink our teeth into it.
I'll start off with the latest news poll, which of course is commissioned by the Australian newspaper. Now, they're finding that female voters aged 35 to 49 are abandoning Peter Dutton with only 2 weeks to go to the election. So if you haven't been following the poll numbers since the start of the election cycle, basically the coalition has been losing ground. This isn't entirely surprising, given the fact that Labor have only been around for one term. People aren't really comfortable with the idea of change so soon into an administration that's only been around for one term. And even if polling in the rest of the year doesn't really reflect that, people start to want to play it safer by the time it comes down to the polling day. So this isn't really unusual, especially given the fact that we haven't had any like major scandal or any like major fuck up from Labor. And no, I'm not even counting cost of living there, because the coalition would have done the exact same thing, and they're still not offering an alternative that would push down the cost of living. But we'll get more into that later on. If we look at the primary vote, Labor is on 33 with the coalition on 36. Greens on 12, One Nation on 7, and then others, which of course is mainly Teal independents, on 12%. If we look at it, two-party preferred, we've got Labor on 52% and the coalition on 48%. So
I'm surprised it's not lower.
So, that is an extra percentage point that Labor have picked up. So it's looking more and more likely like we are going to have a majority Labor government. Even though for a long time people were predicting a minority alliance with the Greens and the Teals, don't think we're going to get that now. Assuming that this data is accurate. And I mean, data from sources like YouGov were showing very similar results as well. So, yeah, I don't know. You guys tipping?
Actually, the only thing that surprises me about those results is that the Liberal Party isn't lower. Especially like me and Fluoride kind of got together and watched the highlights of the debate, and it was just the performance there was just pathetic. I'd like to know how much Dutton individually has approval.
Yeah. Is he kind of just there to sit there and lose? He's just cruising it. Yeah, sit there, lose, get paid a giant check.
Yeah, I watched the debate as well. I admit I wasn't paying complete attention to it 100% of the time.
Yeah, welcome to the club.
Yeah,
it was difficult. Doing our
say
best,
even
damn
But
it.
me and Flora, like, we started it, we got like 12 minutes in, and it was so fucking dry. I literally just searched up on YouTube highlights. Then we watched an 8-minute
because it
video of
was so
highlights.
canned. Like we were playing it so safe, just
Yeah.
memorizing pre-written lines.
Feels like I'm
And
watching Question Time again. Fuck.
Mm.
it was pretty boring. Some of the other debates I found more interesting, like the housing debate between Claire O'Neill and Michael Sukkar, that we'll get to a bit later. But yeah, that was, as far as leaders debates go, that was pretty stale. Now Dutton has made what was considered a pretty big error before. He said that the Russians had sought to establish a base, a long range aircraft base in the Papua region of Indonesia, which of
Okay.
course would mean that would have been right on Australia's doorstep. And, safe to say, geopolitically, that's not something you want, to have like a Russian base
No.
right next door to you. That's
Could be.
sort of what causes so much trouble in diplomacy in Europe. Is like who
In
has
Syria.
got like who's got rockets pointed at who has a base here, uh, and it's fine the fact that we've got multiple United States bases actually in our country, actually on our shores.
Just occupying us.
Yeah, but perish the thought that we could have a Russian base anywhere near us.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we not make Oceania a massive clusterfuck? Because it kind of already is.
Yeah, well, look, as far as I can see, we've got a couple of stories on this later, but I think the Indonesians were approached by Russia, which is not surprising that they would do that. But it's been turned down.
I guarantee you, literally, within, I don't know, next diplomatic opportunity, Indonesia is going to show up here with its hand out saying, hey, look, these guys over here, they
Look
offer
at how
me
low
so
we
much."
are, buddy old pal. Look at
Yeah.
this. We know you're going to pay out much more than they would have, so give it out, or next time we'll give them consideration.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, it's like when the Solomon Islands just went with China in that deal. It was like, well, quite simply, China offered them something better than Australia did, and we were
Yeah,
caught
that
off
was
guard by that.
literally, that geopolitical battle was who could cut the check fastest.
Oh, fuck, we did. Well, I guess they
Well,
didn't want to wait on a better offer. They just, hey, give money now, and we're on your side.
Yeah, not even that. Because remember the Solomon Islands, they turn around to Australia and say like, oh look, we're going to be underwater because of global warming. Absolutely not the reason why they're concerned about that, and I doubt the people in the government even fucking have that kind of thought and that kind of time span, capability. But yeah, they turn around and try to fucking double dip and be like, hey, look, you should fucking pay us money because of this. So the fucking the geopolitics play going on in this part of the world is absolute fucking horse shit.
They're bloody trying to play to our moralities, and our moralities is fucking a man's dick in another man's butt and climate change.
Yes.
So, have either of you two fellas heard of Melbourne Freedom Rally and Tactical Force Combatives? You heard of either of these groups?
Melbourne Freedom Rally, yeah, that would. I mean, do they still fucking do their shit? I'm pretty sure they fucking
Apparently, they
disappeared
still
off the river,
operate,
didn't
yeah.
they? Oh, what the fuck? Okay.
Yeah.
And tactical anti-protesting units. Like, yeah, I've literally. I mean, remember the time that we're at that one fucking protest, and I pointed out that I recognized that guy, and then people were like, "How do you recognize him?" It was like because he's the detective that was knocking on my door, and he was just standing there in plain clothes.
Well, these two groups, they're described by the ABC as far right and also alt right. In fact, I think they had alt right in the title of this article. I didn't even know people still use that term, but the ABC did.
Well, I guess when they want a term, they'll use that term.
Well, a couple of guys got close to Albanese in the hotel that he was staying at during his travels. And, well, they asked him a couple of questions. And so this has sparked security fears. Now, you can go, like the article that has the 2 videos in question. These guys did get close to Albanese, but it's not like they ever tried to assault him or anything like that, or even put their hands on him. All they did was just ask him questions about immigration and how it has contributed to the housing crisis and an increased cost of living. That was it.
He looks like a stunned fish in every single one of those videos.
Yeah, and I mean, this
The
has happened
plebeians
before.
are asking me questions. How could this be?
Well, look, you guys watched the debate. I mean, how many times was the issue of net immigration actually brought up? I don't
Once
remember.
cursorily.
Well,
Yeah.
I remember Peter Dutton brought it up once about housing, and he said that Albanese had brought in 1 million people in 2 years. And I thought, no, it's more than that. You're off the mark by about 200,000 there. But then you would expect him to say, oh, well, that's why we will cut immigration. But then, no, all he did was then talk about how you can take 50 grand out of your super and contribute that towards your deposit on a house, which, of
Towards
course,
paying
would just
rent.
simply which would just make house prices go up by 50 grand. So,
Yep. Well, you've got the was the early childcare fucking problem where it's just like, oh yeah, we'll subsidize childcare, and then all the fucking daycare centers is like, yeah, the subsidy amount's this. Well, let's increase our price by exactly that.
yeah, and so the only way you can actually get Albanese or Dutton really to answer questions on this is if you have some like rogue citizen who goes out and finds them at a random location and asks a question, because
And
you're not going
assault
to get it
them with questions
otherwise.
that aren't canned. Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, and then they're going on about how this raises security. His security was not threatened in the slightest, nor has it ever been by any of the people who have approached him with similar questions.
Maybe it's
His
election
safety has
security.
never been in crisis.
You should always approach the prime minister carefully, screaming and flailing your arms like that one beef jerky from that one commercial from back in the day.
Like how
Don't.
the
That's how you
chaser
get shot.
near him once. Remember the chaser got near him with a chainsaw?
Oh,
Fuck me, dead.
who's Kevin Rudd
that?
and the screwdriver guy? Was it Kevin Rudd or who was that?
Oh, no, it was John Howard. Yeah, sorry,
John
It was John
Howard.
Howard.
Yeah.
And
There
the
was-
chainsaw.
The Chaser have had a thing of going after politicians and asking questions. I think it was Gladys had the Chaser come and ask her questions or give her a reward or something at a train station or something once. So I guess if you're a press guy part of the bloody channel, you can organize this shit. But citizen journalism.
If I really didn't want to go to jail, I would also harass politicians.
Fuck.
Okay, so moving on. So look, the coalition is not obviously, admitting they're going to lose or anything like that. They are saying that they're the underdog simply because they're the opposition going in. But no, look. But the thing is, though, it's only been in the past week or so that commentators have been seriously talking about not just the idea of the coalition losing the election, but also actually losing seats that they currently hold. That was basically ruled out before, but the way the polls have been trending, it looks like they may actually lose some of those seats. Not necessarily to Labour, but perhaps to the Teals or to the Greens in some of the other seats.
People basically wanting to make a change just to make a change. Yeah, I think if they know they're in those embattled seats, they're more likely to give a shit enough to do that.
Yeah, or in the Senate, God help us, they might actually vote for the Trumpets of Patriots or some crap that as well. And, Palmer's got a good chance of getting at least one senator, just because of the sheer amount of money because he was last time, he managed to get Ralph Babette into into the Senate, just barely, but he got there. And it's like that cunt just never runs out of money, does he? Have you guys noticed all the Palmer advertising?
Oh yeah,
no,
not around me.
Completely and utterly murdered. They've completely murdered fucking Twitter and YouTube at this point. Like, I'm gonna scroll down Twitter. Let's count 1, 2, 3, 4. Palmer ad.
Well, I got YouTube Red, so I guess I'm spared that.
Punk.
Oh god,
Is a package deal.
I have an ad blocker. I have an ad blocker on Firefox, and I really try to avoid watching YouTube on my phone. You can get that app called, I think it's called New Pipe, where you can watch YouTube videos without the ads. The problem is the search function is really, really bad. So, just functionally, it's kind of shitty, even if it's
you're also always going to be slapped with a NordVPN of Raid Shadow Legends, so you can't avoid advertising.
Yeah, and I don't bother with VPNs. I haven't for a long time, actually. Okay, so talking about election issues, well, cost of living, not a surprise, is the number one issue for voters, but more than that, this is even regardless of age, education, birth, sex, and even your voting intention in terms of what party you support. Every single demographic has put cost of living as the number one issue. Now, this time in 2022, so the last election, eve of the last election, you know what was actually number one? It was climate change. Not overwhelmingly, though. So 23.4% of respondents named that as their biggest issue going into the election. And I mean, that obviously is what would account for the big support of the Teals, who, of course, got a record amount of independents, particularly in the lower house. I think they only got one in the upper, in the Senate, which was David Pocock. So that's flipped. Now, this makes me think, well, that's going to be a wipeout for the Teals then. Because if people have gone from supporting climate change to
my fucking energy bills.
Yeah,
that's right. So I mean, they see the two as very much related, don't they? It's like if you fight climate change, you inevitably push up prices, and there is a dichotomy between climate change policy and cost of living, and voters recognize it, and that's why I think, even though I think maybe the Teals will pick up a couple of seats that they might win from either Labor or Liberal, I think that when it comes to all those seats that they won in inner city Melbourne and Sydney in 2022, I think they're going to lose a lot of those. I think they're going to lose Kooyong. I think they're going to lose Wentworth. They'll probably lose Goldstein as well. A lot of that is to do with the Jewish element, though, and we will discuss a bit of that later on.
We got an entire section on that.
Yeah.
But there's the thing: does the Green actually have a strike back to that? Besides, it's immoral for you to worry about your energy bills when the global crisis is on the line.
Well, all they'll do is tell you that it's not real. They'll tell you that green energy is the cheapest.
Don't believe your lying eyes. An effective fucking strategy if people aren't suffering to bills. So, yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, how can you convince voters of something like that when they're seeing their power prices increase all the time?
Matter of faith.
That is, well, yeah. I mean, I guess if you're a dyed-in-the-wool Greens voter, it would have to be a matter of faith for you. I don't see how you can see it any other way. Some of them do admit it, though. Some of them will say, "Oh no, it actually increase costs, but that's fine. It's worth it." It's like that, that bumper sticker they have that says, "No jobs on a dead planet." Like those kind of Greens voters will admit to you that, yeah, when we shut down coal-fired stations or whatever, that means a lot of unemployment. But they're like, who cares? That's just...
They'll agree and amplify. All right, effective tactic, yeah.
Some of them
Fuck.
will. I mean, Adam Band won't do that, of course. He's not going to go on Insiders and say that. But some of the voters will. Okay, so so new policy by the coalition. They want to introduce a country of origin labeling on wood products. Now, this, of course, is said to be a way of boosting Australian forestry. People want to be able to only to choose Australian products first. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would kind of like to see that across the board, though. Not just on timber products, but across
On
many
all products would be nice. But then again, like with these timber products, like at what stage is the timber considered to be from country X? Because say like you've got stuff that's grown in the Philippines and processed in Vietnam, and then on fucking Bunnings thing, it'll say like, oh yeah, product of Vietnam or something like that. When it's just like, well, yeah, but that tree isn't farmed in Vietnam; it's farmed in the Philippines. Are we going to get the same thing where it's just like, oh yeah, and we did like the kilning in Australia, so therefore it's an Australian product?
I have no idea.
None
whatsoever.
Well, I can say that here, if you like your lovely Australian fish here in Sydney, if it's been processed, it's likely to have gone overseas to Vietnam, processed, and then shipped back. Just because of the price of getting somebody to chop the fucking fish up, more likely to just get some third worlder to do it and then re-import it.
Right. Oh, now, here's something that really did not surprise me. And that is that the Australian Electoral Commission is allocating a record amount of staff who speak a language other than English. The reason for that is because we're getting a lot of voters going to the ballot box who either don't speak English or speak English very poorly.
So
And
whites need not apply.
Well,
Yes.
The article...
not necessarily, but it's going to be...
Well, they say that these voters face considerable challenges when voting for the first time. In other words, reading the bloody ballot paper. But they said, don't worry, because they take the whole process very seriously. So these non-English speakers, the people who can't even speak the language of the country they've adopted, feel very strongly about the future direction of the country, even though they're not willing to integrate themselves by doing the very basic function of speaking the local language.
So our voting system is compulsory. Therefore, it's kind of a necessity to get these people to know what the fuck they're doing, I guess, and not flop their vote.
Yeah, assuming they're citizens anyway. Yeah, it is compulsory for them to vote.
I mean, if they've signed in to say yes, I've been here, and then go in the booth and fuck it up, they don't get fined. So whatever on that one.
Yeah, and I mean, also with these types of bureaucracy things, there's going to be impetus to pass as many of these fucking people as possible. If not said explicitly, then being like, oh yeah, we'll just fucking have another crack at it, okay? Hey, you got it wrong here, and here. Just have another go, because that's...
And remember Tony Burke's citizenship blitz, where he was going all around the country, fast-tracking people who were on the waiting list to get Australian citizenship, and then actually presiding over those ceremonies personally, shaking hands, handing out certificates to all these people.
Wearing his colours so people know what side to vote for.
Yes. Dare I say that a hell of a lot of those people the APC are talking about in this article are those very ones who got their citizenship fast-tracked, and the ones whose heads have been filled with Labor messaging saying, yeah, the party that got you that citizenship and
they need you now.
They're called Labor, and they're the ones that you vote for. You put a number one in their box.
Oh boy.
Okay, now talking about another kind of electoral tactic here. The Liberal Party have sent out a campaign email that has an unsubscribe link, but when you click that link, it actually takes you to the party's postal vote data harvesting website instead of allowing you to opt out.
Fuck you, buddy,
Yeah.
for trying to opt out.
Thank you for trying to opt out. We are now going to sell your information.
Yes. So, wow, I mean, that couldn't be more misleading. Like to have an unsubscribe button that actually does like the complete opposite of what you want. Now, believe it or not, though, the Australian Electoral Commission, who is aware of this, they said that that is not against like campaign laws. And it says that political parties are not required to provide a way to unsubscribe from email communications.
Huh.
So I just assumed that they did. I thought that was compulsory to have that, you know. I would basically say that if you're on any kind of subscriber list, or if you run one of those services like MailChimp or something like that, that it should be compulsory for there to be an unsubscribe link. And definitely, you would think for political advertising, that would be compulsory.
Just remember, you're here forever.
Right. So if you try to get off that list, well, your data will be harvested instead.
And you remain on the list.
Oh, yes. Okay, now we've heard about the Teals like trying to tear down Liberal Party signs. We've now got a story of the Liberal Party trying to tear down one of their own signs. Now, the reason why this happened is because they had a truck that had Liberal Party campaign signage draped across it.
Mm-hmm.
And this truck was actually delivering materials to the Quakers Hill Community Centre. But on the way, it crashed into the building itself.
Oh, yeah. And it had that Indian lady on it. That was fucking hilarious.
Yes.
It was that one Indian candidate.
And they didn't want
like,
bad
barely could
advertising.
speak. She was like talking about fuel prices at like a Bowser's, like Liberal Party give 20% less on fuel. I'm laughing my ass off. It's like, you can fucking barely speak English, lady, and you are a fucking party candidate. You have the most egregious Southern Indian accent.
Yeah, her name is Rattan Virk. So she is obviously the candidate in that seat, which is Greenway in New South Wales. But basically, like, having a truck crash into a community centre, not a good look. And you've got the Liberal Party advertising on that truck as people are looking on saying, what the fuck happened here?
I also love that it was
like,
a rent a truck. It's not like a party truck. It's not like they owned it. It was a rent a truck because when they hit the place, the vinyl came off.
So I mean, like, this is like horrific. This is a campaign that is a literal car crash. I mean, like we use the term like train wreck as a metaphor to use, to describe when something goes bad. I mean, but this has actually like literally happened. This
Oh
truck
no,
there.
it was too low. I'm looking at the picture right now.
Yeah,
fucking A.
Yeah, it was probably
they didn't even get most of it off. You still got a name up there. Tragic.
Yeah, so there's video where they tried to like scrape the signage off the side of the truck, and,
desperately clawing at it.
Yeah, they weren't able to.
The finger marks of people scratching the side of the truck trying to get this shit off.
Oh man! So yeah, that was definitely one of the more amusing stories I saw in the last week. Oh god! So here's something the Murdoch press loves. So Labor will actually be preferencing the Greens in most electorates. Now, remember, this was kind of a hot topic for a long time where you had various parties trying to pressure Labor into putting the Greens last. on account of them being an anti-Jewish party. And Josh Burns in McNamara was kind of hinting that he was going to do that. Either that or just have an open ballot, meaning they don't preference anyone. But no, it's been revealed that many of the how to vote card information, it's been leaked. And including in Mark Dravis's seat, who, remember, is our most senior Jewish politician, even he is going to be putting the Greens as number 2 on his how to vote card.
Jesus.
Based?
Yeah, so like in Jason Clare's seat in Western Sydney, you've got Omar Sakar, who said that Zionism is on the side of the Nazis.
Never mind.
So that's the Greens candidate there. So remember, like the Muslim vote, they are actually running some of their own candidates independently. But for the ones who basically couldn't afford to do that, they're just running for the Greens. So those ones have got to go along with all the globo homo stuff that they actually oppose. But, you know, to actually get a political machine behind them, they have to go with the Greens because, well, there's no one else. Okay.
We're your only option.
Now, by the way, this is like the first time where one nation won't like basically always be last on the Liberal how to vote card. Now, remember, as far back as 96, like the inception of One Nation, John Howard put One Nation last on Liberal how to vote cards. Now, there's been the odd exception every now and then, but now what you have is the Greens being put last on coalition how to vote cards, but still One Nation is like pretty close to the bottom most of the time. Now, Pauline Hanson says that she's not going to repay the favour, though. They said that it's very much going to be on a seat-by-seat basis in terms of how they direct their preferences. But I'm sure that they'd still be willing to do deals on this.
They can't afford to be petty.
No, and it has been shown that there was like one meeting that was exposed between a Teal candidate and a member of One Nation, which was much more controversial with the Teal candidate, though, because, you know, they're supposed to be the independents who don't engage in transactional politics like that. But of course they
But
will.
it's all diplomacy. They're looking for power, so they're going to have to talk to every party.
Yeah. Okay, now there's been like weird talk about Tanya Plibersek, who is the environment minister. You've had some people talking about how she was looking to actually launch a coup within Labor. Some people were saying that in the lead up to the election, where the polls weren't looking that great for Labor. People were talking about a last-minute leadership change to Plibersek. No, there's no way that would have ever happened. That was just a brain fart from Sky News, I think. But now it's gone into like, oh, look, would she actually seek to still be environment minister after this election? And she still hasn't said like what her plans are, other than she is running and she would plan on serving a full term next time. But no, I just got to remind everyone, like, if you think that she's a future leader, her husband is a convicted heroin smuggler, okay? And
As you
therefore
do.
she can't. Yeah.
Fuck.
I'm not exaggerating.
This shit ain't happening.
Now, he would become, you know, like the first bloke of Australia, or whatever we'd call him, who would be expected to go to, like, you know, to accompany her to big functions around the world. Well, he would be ineligible to actually enter a lot of those countries, like pretty much most Asian countries, for example. They will not let convicted drug smugglers on their shores. And that's a terrible look.
That's a pretty good policy, I guess. Only she could be his
I wish we could do that.
heroine. Oh yeah, that would be fucking great.
We're like,
Right.
oh, we'll
So
deny
you-
you on character grounds, but then like, yeah, like actually have unironically known fucking drug kingpins in the country.
Right. So yeah, no, that won't ever happen. Oh, did you guys see Peter Dutton's son come out and talk about saving up for a house?
I may have heard of it.
You guys see this? No? I think he was like 20 or something like that, and he was talking about how he was like just saving every dollar he possibly could to put that deposit out on a house. But then, of course, everyone's wants to ask the one question. It's like, well, wait a minute, isn't your dad worth like $30 million? Like,
Bootstrap,
did he
son.
just buy you one? But no, in the end, he had to admit, it's like, yeah, of course, we would seek some assistance from the bank of mum and dad. And as we know, like, I can't remember what the figures are on it exactly, but I'm pretty sure, like, after the banks, the second biggest source of money for a house is the bank of mum and dad.
Intergenerational wealth. Yep.
Yeah, because boomers have all got like bloody 3 properties each. Some of which they live in, some of which they rent. Some are investment properties or whatever. They're the ones who have that wealth, and so yeah, it's not a surprise that there's going to be a generational transfer of that kind.
Now you say they rent, but it's usually them using some firm or something to bloody manage everything but receiving the money.
Yeah, but I mean, this would have to be.
Property, for example.
I mean, guys of our generation and younger, obviously, they said something. I heard this figure that, like, it used to be a mortgage was worth like 3 times your yearly income. Now it's like 8 times your yearly income, something like that.
Hell.
We've got some figures on this later on, I think. So yeah, I mean, really, the only way you can get around that is to just go and ask your parents for a big loan, or
And that is if they did well in the game of life, which not everybody's family did.
well, those boomers absolutely worked their asses off for it, didn't they?
Oh my god, I struggled to get a job. I had to shake a man's hand to do it, and I broke my back when I bought this house for a fucking stern look and a firm handshake and 5 raspberries. Back in '68. Dude, it's brutal. It's brutal looking at how good fucking baby boomers had it, man.
I know, and yet they always go on about how tough they had it.
Well, that's one of the things. Like, someone actually said something about the boomer mindset when it comes to these things, where because in their time they're looking around, they see people with smartphones, they see people with reasonably developed technologies, they're seeing people with what they believe to be luxuries, without realizing that okay, a luxury item these days is actually cheaper. A TV is cheaper. These things, a smartphone is cheaper than a fucking phone. Things that they perceive as luxuries are cheaper, but the necessities like fuel, like gas, like food, like housing, they're all vastly more expensive. So they're looking around thinking they're seeing people blow money on luxuries, when really they're not blowing money on luxuries. They're blowing money on stuff that was incredibly accessible for them, and they just don't see the difference there.
I would
Yeah,
I would
it's
also
invisible to
add
them.
that those luxury products like smartphones that we get much cheaper. I mean, of course that's true, but I would ask that those are vapid consumer items that actually serve to make people's lives worse.
Yes.
So I don't see that as a good thing. Like, I mean,
They're
what has
addictions.
been has there been a net benefit to smartphones? I would probably say no. I'd say they've made people's
You can
lives
be
worse.
easily called no matter where you are and expected to always have it on you and charged. So yeah, you're at the beck and call of work.
Smartphone for that. You can
Just
use one of those
access to
Nokia
information.
drug dealers use.
Yeah, I was gonna say just access to information. That's it.
At the touch of your hands without having to hit up the local library.
All right. Last bit of election news before we get to some of the more specific issues. James Patterson, who is the Shadow Homes Affairs Minister, he had his office targeted by neo Nazis the other day.
Hmm.
Now, this was basically about how, because of the, he's responsible for home affairs and therefore immigration. I believe they targeted him simply because he doesn't plan to make any meaningful reforms in terms of cutting net migration. And I think the placard that they had, or the big sign, was Liberal and Labor Third World Australia. In other words, like, it doesn't matter which one you choose, you're going to get the same outcome. And
Hmm.
I completely agree with that. And, I'd go even further and say pretty much any other uh, candidate or party that you pick. I've had a look at the what do you call it, like the mail-in vote ballot paper. I've had a look, and there's really, I mean, if you're a nationalist anyway, there is literally like no choice for you. You can, like, the closest thing you've got is like one of these populist right wing parties. Um, but there's no Australia First, there's no Australian Protectionist Party. You've got One Nation, but they've been completely subverted now. So you just don't have a choice. Anyway, James Patterson said he was not remotely intimidated by cosplaying losers who denigrated both major parties for abandoning the white man. Um,
Hmm.
and I think
Hopefully,
he
by
was chatting.
saying that,
That's a reference.
hopefully by s- yeah, hopefully by saying that he gives up his method to actually go after them and try and destroy their lives. But I doubt it.
He called them
Oh no,
cowards
you
as
can do
well
both.
because everyone except the speaker was wearing a mask.
Brave blokes.
But the thing
Wow.
is, though, like, they come out, they call the guys losers, and also talk about how they're completely irrelevant. Yet they pay an awful amount of attention to them. I mean, every time these guys go out and do a simple demonstration like that, they grab the headlines.
Hmm.
So, if you didn't care about them, you just wouldn't say anything about them. But every time, they get that bit of news coverage. And yeah, they were doing chants like Australia for the white man and hail victory. Oh no.
Terrible.
All right, well, let's go into immigration. And this is a nice little segue because I mentioned, James Patterson through Home Affairs and Immigration is not really offering an alternative. We are told, however, that the coalition is committed to reducing net migration from by 100,000. So, Treasury estimates, which remember are always wrong, but anyway, Treasury estimates say that once we get down to pre-pandemic immigration levels, we will have a net annual migration level of 260,000 people. So the
That's
coalition
still fucking
apparently,
horrific.
it's still a lot. That's still over 250,000 people. Yeah. Um, but the coalition says they want to reduce that to 160,000 a year. Um, Now, this is why if I thought the coalition were to win here, if I thought, they were most likely to win in this election, I would say to everyone, make sure you remember this. Make sure you remember this number of 160,000 that they're putting out there as their benchmark, because they're not going to reach it. They're just not. In that debate we were talking about between Dutton and Albo, this wasn't even mentioned. So the only time they ever commit to it is when they're chased up about it and asked, are you still actually planning this? But it's never a centerpiece of their platform. They never
It'll be
advertise it as
quickly
fruit.
forgotten.
Yes, and the reason why is because the business lobby are opposed to it. And we're going to talk about housing later, but I don't know if you guys also noticed that when they were discussing housing, there was no talk about actually reducing the cost of housing or rentals. In fact, Peter Dutton, when pressed on that, said that he wants to see property prices gradually increase. So, in other words, he doesn't want them to actually fall, to reduce. He just wants the rate of growth to be slower. That's all. And Albo's the same. And, you can make the argument that both men are property investors and they have a vested interest. That's true, but it's really the business lobby who represent the investor class. They don't want to see their investments, meaning their own properties, fall in value. So neither party can actually take a hardline position because I saw actually Joel Davis had something on this a couple of weeks ago where he said, look, when it comes to the housing crisis, we've got one option if you want serious change. And that is basically stop all migration, have net zero migration, and fucking crash the housing market, crash these fucking investments.
No survivors.
Right? And yes, that'll mean some short-term economic pain, but that is
my heart bleeds towards your short-term economic arse pain.
Yes, but that's it. That's the only way you can do it. You just fucking crash the market, and there'll be an adjustment over about a year. And yeah, some boomers will lose a lot of money, but who cares? That's the only way you're going to get it under control. But neither party will actually go there.
Well, so they're being honest that they don't want it to increase in a dishonest manner because they got other interests than their own to fucking have it keep increasing. Yeah,
that's right.
Even when they're honest, they're lying.
Now, in the ABC, they actually were talking about how they were focusing on Melbourne and Sydney here, but even a lot of migrants themselves are complaining about the amount of people that are coming in, and because of the pressure that it's putting on infrastructure. So when it comes to road and rail, public transport,
is kind of infectious, is it? They're caught on to the saying.
So one of the guys, one of the people they profiled here, some Arab guy in the seat of Werriwa, which was actually Mark Latham's old seat.
No.
Oh, okay, no, he's like an Indian or something. I don't know. He's some sort of mystery meat. But anyway, he lives in like Western Sydney, and I believe it said that he works in the city, as a lot of people do. Drive
Travels all the way
to the inner city for your job. And he was saying that over those years, like what started off as like a 20-minute drive to work ended up being an hour and a half drive to work. Even though geographically speaking, his suburb is still, pretty close to the CBD. And I hate this argument a lot of people make where they go like, oh, well, look, high density living isn't so bad because it means everyone is close to the city centre and it means you don't have to travel very far. That's a load of shit. Maybe you're not geographically traveling that longer distance, but you're stuck in traffic the whole time. So it actually makes it worse. So
tell you what, the roads are good because at one point I was working in the fish markets all the way in the middle of the city, and we were going home and got the ride from the boss. And from this, he lived over in Northern Beaches, and from the fish market to Northern Beaches, all green lights on the way, no traffic, bloody 27 minutes, fucking amazing. But as soon as you introduce a couple of cars, a few red lights, yep, that hour and a half fucking travel. Yeah. It's going to get worse with time if, everything isn't replaced with people filled in vans and buses and more rail systems, which we're slowly getting that metro, but it's not going everywhere.
Yeah, that's it. And it's particularly bad in Melbourne and Sydney because I read a figure recently that said about 2/3 of migrants go to either Melbourne or Sydney. The
state of business and the state of buggery.
Yep. Okay, now we mentioned Tony Burke before. Of course, he's the Home Affairs and Immigration Minister. So he has been personally reviewing migration decisions that have been made by the new appeals tribunal, which is the ART, Administrative Review Tribunal. And this was because over the previous policy direction, known as Direction 99, this resulted in a lot of people who had visas cancelled having those visas reinstated. And the reason these were cancelled was because these people had actually committed very serious crimes and were deemed to be too much of a danger. Direction 99 allowed the appeals tribunal the discretion to override that and give them their visa back. Now, according to the Australian here, there were at least 99 cases where a visa cancellation was reversed by the ART, and then those would get referred to Tony Burke because he has unilateral powers as Minister for Immigration to actually just cancel those visas. So, you see, this was such a fuck up that Tony Burke is saying, okay, every single one of those cases that the ART has approved, you've got to send them to me so that I can personally look over them. And yeah, basically all of them, he has been cancelling the visas, which is a good thing, of course. That is a good thing.
But it slows down the fucking system. It fucking grinding those cogs to a fucking standstill. Very effective tactics.
I'm just happy it's being done at all, really.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in regards to foreign students as well, about how the process, is just getting massively delayed. But yeah, this is because, look, this is the deep state, right? Because Direction 99 still says to take into account public safety, like the balancing act. You consider public safety alongside their ties and their roots in Australia. So remember, these are unelected judicial officers who make these decisions. And they're basically all dyed-in-the-wool lefties. They're refugee advocates. And that's what happens. And so we're now in a situation where the immigration minister for the Labor Party is seeing this kind of judicial activism out of control. And he's got to go and personally oversee all of these cases.
I'm reminded of this case in the US where this judge was kind of not really looking in and allowing this guy to get off, and so he jumped at the judge and fucking had at them. And in the end, he used to fucking Hunter from Left 4 Dead. Yeah. Hunter here, and he fucking jumps and attacks it, and then the bailiff's jumping on him trying to get him off. But here's the thing: is only then did they fucking say, "Oh, now you're a problem to society." Well, the people who are fucking letting these violent bastards out and not chucking them off the fucking continent are people who would never have that happen to them. So they don't live amongst these people. They're fucking living in leafy suburbs with a big old wall around them. So they'd love it happening to others, but as soon as it would happen to them, they would give a shit. But it would never would.
Before you approve this man's visa, you must be stripped naked and spend a day in a room with them.
It'll change hearts and minds pretty fast.
We're gonna give them equal opportunity to fucking molest you. That's what you fucking deserve.
Yeah. Really to happen to us.
This Direction 99, this was under the stewardship of Andrew Giles, who was an immigration that Labor would probably rather forget. Now, under Andrew Giles, you also had all of those prisoners who were released when indefinite detention was ruled to be illegal in Australia.
Shit.
And then, long story short, we ended up taking 3 of those people and deporting them to Nauru. This is part of, the deal that we have. They take some of these immigrants in return to us giving them a lot of money, basically. It's very transactional. Anyway, this guy has launched a court challenge to the federal court. He's from Iran, but he's managed to keep his identity.
And he wants to inject his penis with synthetic oil.
Yeah, it's not that guy. That guy is in Australia, unfortunately.
Oh yeah,
He is roaming the streets with big balls.
A man with balls inflated with oil, more likely than you think.
And if you're wondering, by the way, why this particular Iranian was in immigration detention, in indefinite detention, he killed his wife.
Yes,
right?
you do.
So, yeah.
Wait,
Anyway,
did he do it in Iraq? I mean Iran, or did he do it over here?
I think over there, I think that's usually the way it works. Is like they commit some crime and then they escape the country and they end up, in some Western country like Australia, looking for refuge.
Looking for a second chance to do it again.
Yes.
Exactly. He had gay panic and killed his heterosexual wife, so that's why we need to need to let him in. This time he's going to kill a dude. A bit more of a challenge.
So look, this guy is challenging his deportation to Nauru on the basis that the island's humidity and heat would impair his breathing.
Fuck off.
It's too hot and humid on Nauru. This guy is from Iran.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Fuck off. Get on the island.
I was in Doha like a year and a half ago, which I assume has a very similar climate to Iran. And holy shit, it is just hot and humid every fucking day. As soon as you walk outside, it's like a massive punch in the face. So
big old furnace being turned on you.
This argument is just ridiculous. But even if he was from like some colder region of the world, that would be a pretty shitty reason, I think. And he could probably wear some Bane mask or something to aid his breathing if that did cause an issue.
I can sleep with a humidifier, you can't.
Oh God, do you have a humidifier? That's what you sound like.
All right, now moving on to foreign students. Now, ever since Peter Dutton announced his 25% cap, and of course Labor have their own measures as well to cut the amount of foreign students here, apparently many of these students have been jumping from university degrees into TAFE courses instead. So like going into cert course, diplomas, etc.
And look, I'm still studying. Still costs them a fortune, though.
Well, it is cheaper. Like if you go from studying a business degree or something to I don't know, painting and decorating, carpentry, something like that, that's a lot less. Plus, it's a shorter course as well. They typically only go for a year.
Well, say a forklift license for one of us, a few $100s, etc. For them, it's a couple of grand. Because they don't get subsidized. A few $100s, yeah. How much is a forklift license over there cost?
That's still a few $100s, man. I actually had a look at getting one recently. Like there's like a place in was it fucking Malaga or some shit that does it, and they're charging like $700.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Shit. I got one. I got my license when I was like 19 or something, and I remember
didn't even cost you $100 in the good old days.
It was bugger all. It was barely anything. I remember that.
Yep, sweet FA.
I wouldn't have a clue how to drive a forklift now, though, because it's been so long.
Up, down, look both ways. Make sure fluid isn't pissing out of it.
And make sure you don't seem inebriated walking into work.
Yeah, but also when you turn, doesn't like the back of it like turns as well. It's not like with a car.
Yeah.
So it's easy to like run over someone's
front wheel drive. Oh yeah, going around the corner, basically beep a couple of times. I remember beeping going around the corner once, and somebody's still walking with his phone out, fucking hit the brakes. He says, "Oh, go ahead." I fucking pull my handbrake and stare at him, waiting for him to pass. Fuck me dead.
I think some people just get so used to hearing the beep that they stop responding to it.
Yes, but that's
But
only when you're reversing your ass. When you're going forward, you only got the engine and your horn to say, "Don't stand in front of me, or you're going to get poked."
And then there's the electric ones, the silent killer.
Hey, I wonder if they hooked them up to having kind of like the Tesla cars a vrooming sound as it drives along. From the
Maybe.
Bluetooth speakers.
oh man, it's so long since I've done any one of these jobs. Like getting nostalgic for it.
Pick up
So
pallet,
working-
move pallet, try not to crush into things or scrape the ever-loving shit out of it.
No, but I did do that stuff. Like I worked full time in a warehouse for a year when I was a lot younger,
Yep.
doing all that kind of stuff. Thoroughly boring. but
Don't
it
enjoy
helps you
stacking blocks autistically.
Not really. Do you know now? Have you guys seen like all those bloody simulator games that you can get like on Steam
Yeah.
and that? You can
Hard day
actually
at work, trucking, get home, go into Euro
Uh,
Truck Simulator.
Yes,
You can
yes,
get a
the
warehouse
German
simulator.
containment program.
What the fuck, man? Why would I want to simulate these like extremely boring tasks? What kind of a video
You
game
do
is that?
not understand the drive, spirit, and motivations of the blue collar German worker.
If they could be there until they fall asleep, they would be.
Holy shit! These people are a mix of autism and fucking just self-hatred.
It just, I don't know, that blows me away. Or the PC
Lock me into the
making
WGK,
simulator.
Chief. Weld me and I am ready.
Oh man. Okay. Anyway, so foreign students, they're jumping from like degrees into certs and diplomas, basically because they've got a better chance of getting a student 500 visa renewed, because they may
I
have
wonder if they
actually
get
reached
most of their money back. I mean, you go to the university, you change your degree. Do you get you fucking back charge? You get your money.
I mean, I
Make
don't,
a
I
lot of
don't know
dollars.
how it works for foreign students, but I mean, like just as a normal student, I know there's just the census state, which I think is like after if you've been in the course for more than 4 weeks, then you get charged the full fees. You can no longer drop out or change course or anything. Well, you can, but you've got to pay for it.
Big money.
So, but anyway, this guy he was working at. No, what is this guy? Oh no, I think he's a migration agent. He said, "I can't tell you the number of Uber drivers I've met in recent times telling me they've switched from a Bachelor of Business degree to painting and decorating." And of course, yeah, all these students, what's their job when they're not studying? They're Uber drivers.
Oh no, I might have to be the only non-Jeet Uber driver in a bit.
Okay, now here's the ART story.
I'm gonna lecture drunk people about Hitler.
All right, so the number of international students challenging visa decisions via the ART has soared to 25,854. So this, of course, is down to the caps that have been put down. So a lot of people have just had their visa application refused because, like, the course or whatever that they want to get into, they've already reached that limit and they can't. But anyway, the sheer amount of people, because that's nearly 26,000 people in the system, they'll be giving bridging visas in the meantime, meaning that they can still legally stay in Australia. So even if we may have cut the amount of visas that we're handing out for students, that doesn't mean that we're necessarily cutting immigration, because these people are just moving to other visas or to bridging visas while they wait for their appeal to be heard.
And they do all have lawyers. This is big business for a student having a lawyer to actually get onto the next thing. It's probably carrying not just your bloody fruit people, but the lawyers are probably making just as much money and lobbying just as much for yeah.
Oh,
this whole
definitely.
routine as anyone else.
Actually, no, I made a tweet about this a bit ago, and it's my little catchphrase on the show now is it's like, oh, I need my brown slaves for my fucking agricultural product. And there was this one thing, it was like, oh, I'll scroll down to it, I'll find it. Yeah, there's this one like Nurses Against Dick Pics, which is like some fucking fag hag. We're hiring farm pickers, $11 per hour, 9 to 10 hours a week, 7 days a week, May through to July 2025. And it's just like, well, oh no, this is in LA, so $11 is a little bit better. But like, yeah, it's just like literally like, oh, it's your time to shine now. You're gonna get $11 per hour to be a fruit picker. $11 an hour to be a fruit picker. It's like, yeah, and you're pissed off about this because you do not have access to slave labor to do this. You don't have access to people who are functionally slaves, who get paid their wage and have the vast majority of their wage taken back in room and board, like we've covered on this show multiple fucking times. That's why I like to because there's no answer to that. When they say like, oh, we need backbreaking migrants to work hard and do this for us, and you're being a racist by not letting them be X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, you are asking me, you are looking me right in the eye, and you're asking me for a slave caste.
Yes, but by any other name.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the exciting topic of anti-Semitism. So I mentioned earlier that Labor will still be directing preferences as they usually do to the Greens, meaning that most of the electorates they'll be saying put Greens as number 2. Now that includes Anthony Albanese's seat of Grainler. As I mentioned before, it also includes Mark Dreyfus's seat as well. And the Executive Council of Australian Jewry have expressed their disappointment in this move and said that it is difficult to comprehend. So Alex Rivkin from the ECAJ said both major parties should be united in marginalising the Greens for what they have done to our communities and our country. It is bitterly disappointing that a senior member of the government and an eminent Jewish Australian could see fit to instruct his supporters to put a 2 next to the party that has done more to vilify the Jewish community than any party in Australian history. Mr. Dreyfus has previously shown a keen understanding of how extreme anti-Israel rhetoric is in fact anti-Semitism, no matter the euphemisms or political code it comes wrapped in. Yeah, they really don't seem to consider Mark Dreyfus one of their own, even though he's clearly of the tribe. He made a speech at that anti-Semitism symposium thing they had at Sky News, and I'm pretty sure he was the only one who got some boos and some jeers, because he talked about people weaponizing anti-Semitism for political gain. No doubt kind of taking a veiled shot at some of the people in that room. But yeah, they didn't like that.
Is he what some of them would call a bad Jew?
You could say that, yeah. I mean, look, even though this is the guy, he's the Attorney General, remember, like the Chief Law Officer, he's the one that's responsible for the hate speech laws, for outlawing World War II insignia, outlawing the Roman salute, etc. He's the minister responsible for all of those draconian laws being pushed through. So I just can't see Alex Rivkin's point of view here, that Dreyfus is some kind of traitor to Jews or something. He has actually trampled on the rights of Australians for the purpose of furthering the interests of Australian Jewry. So,
well, I guess if you let off the kind of like the saying is in America with Trump is if you let him off the hook, if you stop needling him to do more things, then they're free to already have your vote and not worry about it. So if they stop whipping him, he might stop doing what they want.
Right. Now, Oh, I mentioned Josh Burns as well. So he is the Labor member for the inner city Melbourne seat of McNamara. Now, he did a joint press conference with Anthony Albanese the other day. And he was actually asked about leaving his preferences open. They call that an open ticket. That basically just means that they had a vote card say, vote one Labor, but then just decide yourself. Whoever else you want to put down, we'll
It
leave that
don't
up to
matter.
you.
None of this matters.
Yes. So that question about exactly what Josh Burns was planning to do on his ballot, how to vote card, was asked, and Anthony Albanese just put his hand up and shooed them away at that point. And that was the end of questions. So we've covered before that Josh Burns has said that he'll do whatever he possibly can to stop the Greens from taking those seats in inner city Melbourne that do have large proportions of Jewish voters. But he never really said how. And there's not really any other way.
More pseudo bomb trucks. Fuck me dead.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, those have sort of stopped all of a sudden. Ever since the caravan was shown to be fake, all of those graffiti attacks and acts of vandalism and stuff, mysteriously, even though we're heading into an election and a time of peak political activity, they've all mysteriously stopped.
Yeah. Funny that. If I can think it would be the most effective time for this bullshit to start happening fucking everywhere, but no. Fucking disappeared. Fancy that.
Okay. Now, Peter Dutton, he attacked the International Criminal Court, who, remember, does have an arrest warrant out for Benjamin Netanyahu. They've also got, must point out though, that they do have arrest warrants out for senior Hamas leaders as well.
Just
So,
to equalize the playing field.
Yeah, it goes both ways here. That's rarely spoken of. But anyway, Peter Dutton did say that Benjamin Netanyahu would be welcome in Australia should he choose to travel here, and that Australia would not make good on its commitment to the IIC, because remember, we are a signatory to the the ICC. And so that means we would actually basically have to break the agreement that we have.
Is there any consequence to that besides not being in part of the party of looking fancy?
Right,
or does our fucking president get on the list of people to be arrested? Fuck me dead. Fucking president. Fuck my life.
There's no point in being a signatory if you're not actually going to make good on the deal. And that does include if there's an arrest warrant out and then that person is known to be on your shores, you have to arrest him. That's just what it is. And
you signed up for this bullshit.
Yeah, Penny Wong said as much. She said, well, yeah, look, we're a signatory, so yes, of course, we would have to do that. That's what we're required to do by international law. That's what we agreed to.
Be pretty funny if we betrayed him and chucked him into the slammer. Do him an old Cardinal Pell until he fucking dies. When he gets out of fucking old Fergieisms.
The chances of Peter Dutton doing that are between 0 and 0.
Come on, Peter Dutton, do the long game. Die a martyr, probably getting gunned down by operatives out of Israel.
That idea, but it just wouldn't happen.
Yeah. Bloody lovely fantasies.
Okay. So, we're just going to talk briefly. We've got a few stories on the Teals, but here's one to kick it off. There's actually been a lot of redistribution in those inner city Melbourne seats I was talking about, such as Kooyong, because Kooyong, this was Josh Frydenberg's seat. Since the last election, the electorate of Higgins, which is another inner city Melbourne seat, was actually abolished. And so much of Higgins was absorbed by Kooyong. And that has made, apparently, 5,000 extra Jewish voters in the electorate of Kooyong. Now, I said before that I think that the seats that the Teals won in the last election, mainly in inner city Melbourne and Sydney, I think the Liberals are going to win back probably most of them. The main reason being because of the cost of living and how people associate that with fighting climate change, and people know that that's what the Teals are for. But the other reason is because Jewish voters have never been so activated in an election before.
Yeah.
They really think now more than ever, than any time in Australian history, the Jews kind of feel like they have to vote in their ethnic interest rather than on something like the cost of living.
Or weird ideological
Yeah.
grounds, or what's going to increase the value of their like fucking portfolio.
Yeah, and look, there's a broad consensus among Australian Jewry that voting in their ethnic interest means voting for the Liberal Party. So, if you've got an increase of Jewish voters in these seats, and you've got Jewish voters activated more than ever to vote along ethnic lines, well, they're going to poach those votes from the Teals. The Libs have the upper hand there. They've convinced the Jewish community that they are the party to do the most for Jews, to be the biggest Shabbos goys of all. And the Teals have been trying. You got to hand it to them. They have been bending over backwards to make it look like they are actually the biggest philo-Semites in the room. But I don't think they're winning that PR campaign. I think the Liberals are winning that. And so, yeah, these seats like Kooyong, like Goldstein, Wentworth, maybe even Warringah, I reckon they're going to go back to the Libs.
Well,
Yeah, I think
be a
basically
bit
the
of
Jewish
a
community is looking at the Teals and being like, "Hey, like, stop fucking trying to do poppers and go to gay bars and start throwing people in jail."
a lot of work was used to get into those fucking seats in the first place. I'd be amazed if they just swung right back. Fucking the ousting of Tony Abbott being a prominent one of them. Member for Wentworth, Tony Abbott.
Yeah, that was like back in 2019. That was one of their
Like
early
Get Up.
victories.
Yeah. Man. And it was blue for the longest fucking time, if I remember correctly.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And most of those seats were Wentworth, Kooyong, etc. They were all blue ribbon. But this time around, the Teals are going after Labor seats like Fremantle as well. So it doesn't discriminate. It's just most of those inner city seats, traditionally, were Liberal. The Teals are not targeting those seats because they're anti-Liberal. They're targeting those seats because that's where they have the biggest chance of winning. But maybe not in this election.
Not this time.
Okay. So Ethan Floyd has been chosen to run for the New South Wales Greens. He's going to be fifth on the ticket. And as the Australian points out, he is a University of Sydney pro-Palestine encampment leader.
Yep.
So, one of these guys who sets up tents and stuff on university campuses, and apparently says anti-Zionist, anti-Jewish things. The Greens are showing that they're continuing to recruit among those ranks.
Based.
Yeah, not really when you look at everything else they say.
It's terrible.
But yeah, the Australian points out that a lot of these people, that's how they became known. They became a known political activist because of their activism on campus. promoting the Palestinian cause.
And that's not a good place to be for a fucking student, because you're on the list. Happens in America. Happens with what do they call it? The vest, boycott the vest, BDSM, whatever. And basically they go onto a fucking list and remembered from then on.
You just said BDSM, didn't you?
I did just say BDSM, but I'm an asshole for saying it.
Subjecting Israel to BDSM.
And they get subjected to a list for
Financial
life,
BDSM.
which follows them around for life. And an easy list to keep, I guess.
Yeah, you don't want to be on the
shows you give a shit.
Or list, unfortunately. Not where you want to be.
Nope. Okay. Now, here's a story I posted on the socials earlier today. 47,000 pamphlets have been distributed in the electorate of Wentworth. So remember, Wentworth is held by the Teal Allegra spender. This used to be Malcolm Turnbull's, see. And Wentworth is the most Jewish electorate in the country. So here's another reason why I think, this is a seat that the Teals are going to lose. This pamphlet accuses Allegra Spender of being weak on anti-Semitism. Now, nothing unusual about that. So Jewish groups have been saying that the Teals have been weak on anti-Semitism. They'll say the same thing about Labour, and then they'll just call the Greens like blatant anti-Semites or whatever.
Yes, you do.
But yeah, for the most part, Jewish groups and just Jews generally are not convinced that the Teals are doing enough to combat anti-Semitism in Australia. But what is interesting about this pamphlet is that it says on it that it is produced by the people of Wentworth for the people of Wentworth. So it doesn't say the organisation who has actually authorised it or produced it, which is illegal.
I thought that was highly fucking illegal. Not to say, fucking of this part of fucking Canberra. If you don't have that on it,
whenever you see those ads on TV where you hear the very fast voice at the end, that's what they're doing. They're fulfilling campaign laws by declaring who it was that authorised the advert. So here they weren't doing that. Now, last time I checked this article from the ABC, the ABC said that the Electoral Commission has contacted the company which printed the pamphlets, and there is an investigation underway. And I think we all know that this is obviously going to be some kind of a Jewish group or Jewish individual that has produced this. And what I want to know is, are they going to be taken to court? Are they going to be charged for this? Because this is a blatant violation of electoral law.
I'd put my money on no. You're allowed to do this if you're of the right people. It'll just be ignored. You're allowed to commit crimes if you're of the right people.
Can you imagine if the EAM did something like this?
It'd be another show.
What would happen to them?
Fired out of a cannon into the sun.
There'll be a lot less people dinner nights and etc. I'll put it that way. There'll be some people in vans coming around. There'll be the man in the van with a plan to hunt every one of those motherfuckers down and stick them where they put Tom. Talking about Tom, Tom can't fucking speak to anyone anymore. Actually, shit. Are you even? Ooh. Yeah, I have to work around that, to be honest. Fuck.
Work around what?
Oh, the non-contact or disassociation orders given to both Tom and Joel.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Well, is this the bikie gang laws coming into effect here?
Yep.
Yeah. It's also why Stephen Wells is still in jail in Adelaide because he refused to accept the bail conditions regarding communications and so forth. So he just has to languish in jail until his trial.
Which is they've just made a note. I think Ninja just posted on Twitter that they've actually extended it. They've kicked the can further down the road.
Fuck's sake.
Yeah. So I really hope though, like once that's all done and Stephen Wells is out and everything, that they sue South Australian police.
Oh yeah,
Over what is obviously a miscarriage of justice and just over policing, enforcing laws that are never usually enforced.
I imagine his conditions are also torturous.
Okay, so let's move on to the economy. Now, the coalition, of course, likes to talk about small business, and I think the fun fact Peter Dutton had in that debate was that in the last 3 years, around 30,000 small businesses have gone bankrupt in Australia. Not surprising. I mean, you do very often hear about entertainment venues that rely on people having a certain amount of disposable income to give them business. And well, when you even struggle to pay for the necessities of life, of course, they're the kind of things that you start cutting down on. You don't go to the bar anymore. You don't go to the restaurant. Don't go to the cafe because you simply don't have the money.
Ain't got the money for coffee? Brew it at home.
So the coalition wants small to medium businesses to claim $20,000 worth of meals for staff each year on tax. So they said that would boost morale for staff and would also be good for hospitality business. Now, this was actually announced back in January, but apparently has only been mentioned one time since then. So usually what happens, when a party stops talking about a policy, it usually means, they want to kind of quietly kill it. Happens all the time. Just think of like Labor and that hydrogen plant in South Australia, for example. As soon as they went quiet about that, we all knew it was going to get scrapped. Now, he also has unveiled a new 3-year tax offset to help small startups to reinvest. And they've put in a target to grow the number of small businesses in Australia by 350,000 over 3 years.
It might be natural all of its own. I mean, most people who do go bankrupt, not bankrupt, whose business fails, do go on to make another business. I think it's an 80% failure rate of fucking new business owners. But do fucking get those understanding what the fuck's going on and start a new one. So I could see it go by that growing mannerisms all of its own.
Yeah, but I mean, surely we have to deal with the circumstances that we find ourselves in now, which is that people just lack that disposable income, meaning that they're not going to spend that money at these kind of businesses that would be beneficiaries of these startups and that.
Between breaks, getting lunch somewhere. Let's see. I guess what other small businesses can you open up?
And I don't see what just tinkering with the tax code a little bit is going to do, especially to grow by 350,000 over 3 years, even though we've actually lost 30,000 businesses over the last 3 years. That seems very fantastical. Now,
hoping for a miracle then.
Well, even when it comes to some of this taxation policy, for example, bracket creep, which is when people move into a higher income tax bracket and pay income tax,
discourage you from even trying to earn even more money. Why would you even turn up if all of it's going to go right down the drain?
So Peter Dutton said that the coalition's plans on reforming the tax code to account for bracket creep is merely an aspirational pledge. It's not a hard target. He just says that like some hypothetical time down the road, once they've fixed the economy, that they can then look at reforming bracket creep. I'm like, okay. So you mean you're not even making a promise there? So I think we can safely say that this aspirational pledge is worth nothing.
Hey, isn't tall poppy syndrome a fucking tradition at this point then? Fuck. This bloody bracket creep does look like, he's getting a bit high, cut him off at the knees.
No, but we need to actually give ourselves a lot of short-term pain, which would include even more small businesses going out of business, just for a while. If we had a net zero migration policy, and we would destroy a lot of the foreign investment that we've got, we'd destroy a lot of the domestic investment too from the boomers with all the properties they have. It would cause some short-term pain, and probably even more small businesses would close. But there would be a correction, obviously. It's not like it's just going to stay like that. And we'll move back into a situation where people have higher wages and they don't have to spend so much money on rent and mortgages and debt.
God
and
willing.
therefore have more disposable income that they can spend at these types of small businesses. It's not easy getting there, but it can be done. All right, well, let's move on to housing. So I remember this was the first topic actually that they broached in the debate. And like I said, Dutton mentioned Labor bringing in 1 million people over 2 years. But then when it came to them actually pitching their own policy ideas, neither of them actually spoke about immigration. Now, remember, if you talk about cutting migration, what you're talking about is reducing demand. If you want to talk about simple demand and supply economics here, obviously, when you increase demand, when you have limited supply, prices go up. And that's what we've been experiencing in this economy for about 5 years now. But both the policies that were put forward by Labor and the coalition during that debate actually involved increasing demand. So let's look at Albo's one, for example. This is where you would get government assistance to allow you to put only a 5% deposit onto a home loan. And then, the government kind of helps you with that. Then the coalition had a plan where you can access $50,000 worth of your superannuation and put that towards a home loan. Now, both of those policies increase demand without actually looking to increase supply. So even though you might cause some short-term relief for some home buyers, eventually what you're going to have is the housing market readjusting, pushing prices up to account for that extra demand that they've pushed in. So ultimately, both policies would make housing prices go up even more.
They cracked a cherry during COVID of touching the super, and now they want another taste of that bullshit.
And then it's going
to be great in so many years in the future where we just have a lot of broke pensioners going around holding signs at intersections.
Yeah. Now, the only thing they talked about on the supply side, Albanese was talking about increasing housing density where appropriate, he put it. Okay, so yeah, that means you do increase supply, and it means you get people living in tiny little shoeboxes. Most people don't want to live that way.
On top of each other. Fucking
there may be a lot of demand for it. Yeah, there may be a lot of demand for it, but that's because people can't afford anything else. Now, they had this ridiculous actually, I wanted to have a look at this. There were some figures that were put out on the cost of housing in comparison to wage growth across Australia. So I'm not going to read all of these out, but they've got the capital cities here. I'll go through the top 3. So in Brisbane, this is since 2020, by the way. So disposable or income has gone up by 16.7%, but housing costs have gone up by 51.7%. In Adelaide, 20.1% for living standards, and 52.2% for housing costs. And you know who's come in at number one? Perth. So Perth rents have
Yay!
risen 5.2% faster than the cost of living.
Oh,
So sorry, by disposable income, which has gone up by 15.2%. But the cost of housing in Perth over the last 5 years has gone up by 79.2%. We are
Yep.
now, for renters, the most expensive city in the country.
woo! Fucking number two. Woo! Fucking Sydney number two. Get fucked, Perth.
It's like
Yeah.
biting the gold medal and fucking spraying the champagne, and it's
Oh,
what did we win?
fucking silver.
The getting
And by the
raped
way-
contest. That's what we won.
By the way, back in 2020, Perth was the cheapest city to rent in all of Australia.
What changed?
So in
No
only-
one gives a shit
In
about
5
what
years,
happens
we've
here.
managed to completely reverse that.
Fuck.
Imagine
Impressive, mate.
Imagine how fucking cool as a cucumber some cunt who signed a 5-year lease back in 2020 is right now.
Yeah.
He's the one drinking that champagne and biting that medal.
Yeah. So the median weekly rent now in Perth is $700.
Yep.
No, I mean, to be fair, in Melbourne and Sydney, it's pretty close to that amount as well. But, you know,
Close enough.
it's it's a lot. Yeah. Now, Claire O'Neill who's the housing minister, and Michael Sukkar, they had a live debate on 7:30. I believe they also did that. What's it called? The National Press Club as well. But man, I just encourage people to watch the 7:30 debate for the cringe that was involved in this. It was one of those fiery interviews where they were like interrupting each other fairly often. But then at one stage, when Sukkar interrupted Claire O'Neill, Sarah Ferguson, the host of the show, actually said to Sukkar, "What would your mother think of you if she saw you interrupting like this?" She actually said that. Sky News
Love,
loved
what's your mum gonna think about you if she watches the telly?
which she probably does. But the thing is, though, he was interrupted like much more. And, you know, I do agree with like Sky News when they talk about the bias that the ABC has against the coalition. It's definitely true, especially when you watch exchanges like that.
I was gonna say like it was like women's languages evolved to scold children. That's why like every time there's a women in power in an institution, they speak like they're scolding children.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, no, which is exactly what you did if you watch that.
I hate infantilization.
Oh, okay. Now, I think I already kind of mentioned this before, but Peter Dutton, when asked about how he wants to see the overall direction of housing prices, he said that he wants to see them steadily increase. So, you know, the point I was making before is that basically no one is willing to say that they want to see housing prices or rentals drop. And for the simple reason that that would hurt the investor class. All they're saying is they just want the rate of growth to slow down a little bit. That's it.
And no promised deadlines given. Just aspirational.
No.
Oh, in my heart, I hope things get better for you, plebs.
But even then, it's like, no, housing prices and rental prices are out of fucking control. They have been for a while now. The only sensible aspiration would be actually to move in the other direction, to see them fall. Right? And when that happens, you get an overall inflation rate that will go down. You'll have interest rates that go down. You'll have more small businesses opening because people will have more money in their pockets. But I don't know, because of the fact that we've got the investor class who are in bed with both sides of politics, we won't actually put in any meaningful reform that will put downward pressure on housing prices. And both sides of politics have basically admitted that. All they do is like this little tinkering in terms of superannuation and tax and how you get a loan and everything. that long term actually just push housing prices up even more.
One side's got basically obliged from the voters to get, well, both sides are obliged to get votes from their voters, not obliged to get free money from handouts from these interest groups. You got to earn that shit more than earning any fucking vote.
So look, the topic of negative gearing came up during the debate. Labor is saying that they have no plans to do that. Previously when they floated those ideas, like back when Bill Shorten was leader, it proved to be unpopular. They also wanted to tinker with the franking credits system. That proved to be unpopular as well, and basically destroyed any hopes that Chris Bowen might have had at leading the Labor Party. So during the debate, Peter Dutton accused Anthony Albanese of seeking modelling on changes to negative gearing. And if you seek modelling, that must mean that you're considering a policy on negative gearing of some kind. Now, it was revealed that, yes, Labor did seek that, but they're splitting hairs by saying, Jim Chalmers is saying, no, we sought a view. In terms of capital gains tax and negative gearing for housing, they simply sought a view from the relevant department. And that is actually different from commissioning modelling. So, yeah,
that's real legal speak. Fucking wonderful
hairs
legal
very,
speak.
very fine pieces there. So I think it's fair to say that Albo was caught out in a lie there, that they had looked at it. That doesn't mean that they're serious about it. Now, there has been actually other modelling released by, what are they called? Adept Economics. And they're saying that, look, if you were to introduce those negative gearing reforms, such as the type that the Teals are promoting or that the Greens are promoting, you would see an increase of about in rental prices by about $5,000 a year. So it's not good.
Boy.
I'm not really sure. I don't have a view on that. I'm not a property investor or anything. When it comes to, I don't know, what do you think about negative gearing, Nolsey? Are you doing that yourself?
Dude, I'm trying to fucking stay afloat myself. I'm not doing anything fucking fancy on this bitch.
You're not doing anything like that? Okay, fair enough. So anyway,
I'm not even spending money on building this place up right now. So yeah, no, I'm not doing negative gearing.
All right, fair enough. So if you look at actually what the Greens want, they want to abolish negative gearing altogether, but they also want to double capital gains tax.
Ooh, I can see why the Teals party exists there then.
Yeah.
Fuck,
so
that's going to be unpopular.
They said if you were to do that and also introduce a rental cap, because remember they want to basically impose price fixing on the rental market, what you would happen there with all those policies combined is you would have 450,000 rental properties withdrawn from the market, and you would see an increase in rent by around $83 a week. Yeah, look, this is what we were saying before. Like, if you do like rent control, that simply means that a lot of those properties wouldn't be able to turn a profit anymore, and therefore they would simply just be withdrawn from the market. And that's the way it works.
And there goes your production of goods.
But the Greens don't seem to understand basic economics like that. Now, further to that, they reckon that back when John Howard was Prime Minister, he made cuts to capital gains tax. And the Greens actually say that the current housing crisis is caused by that. They reckon that and like other tax breaks that investors have received over the years have gradually pushed up housing prices, and that it actually has nothing to do with increased migration levels.
They just keep saying that. What are they trying to hide?
Yeah.
Mm.
Now, I mean, this is where I just say, like, thank God we don't have the Greens in power, because could you just imagine the calamity they would cause with if they were actually to introduce all this shit?
Even when they came close to power, they got that $10 billion investment for fucking everything over.
Yeah. He's like, we are going to completely and utterly fuck over the housing management, fucking section of the economy and import infinity Indians.
Right. On top of
Well, I
that,
guess
yeah, 'cause
there's
they
your
want to
accelerationism.
yeah, I mean, they want to increase our refugee intake and just net migration overall, and they somehow think that they can afford free dental care for everyone, free TAFE and free uni for everyone,
Some fucking
universal
free dental care.
student loan forgiveness as well, without actually wanting to ration any of those services at all in any way.
As I say, accelerationism. Hell of a drug. Very fucking attractive. Like rat poison.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, well, before I said that, I'd love to see the housing market crash. Like, I guess you could say that's
But
a
not
form of
like this.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd like to see it like this.
This
Like-
wouldn't be a crash. This would be a fucking detonation.
Yeah, because if we were to just crash the housing market,
There would
that
be
would
no
mean
survivors.
it would. Well, yeah, but it would be able to readjust. There would be a correction that would occur every year or two or whatever. With the Greens, they would just destroy the very foundations of the housing market itself.
And salt the earth.
Yeah. Yes.
Ironically.
Okay, now the ABC that frequently publishes articles like advocating for high density living in Australia, they just published an article about co-op housing. So this was this in Gippsland. They profiled some woman who, for a lack of a better term, looked like white trash to me, as did her partner. She looks like she was only in her mid-20s, but she's already got 4 kids. They live in this co-op, and it has the security of an open-ended, price-capped lease. But they live there on a shared property with like multiple other people. So it's like one big happy commune, apparently.
Sounds delightfully hippie-like.
It is, but you're talking about very, very disagreeable people all sharing the same quarters. And that sounds like a housing nightmare to me. But there, the ABC spruiking it as like part of the solution to solve the housing crisis.
Is cutting down on what you should have. Again, best we can offer is cutting into your body fat.
Yeah, so the answer is like to make your actual housing situation really, really shit. That's how you solve it.
Yeah, hostels for everyone. Again,
Now,
30 people to a bathroom.
in the town of Noosa in Queensland, the Queensland government has actually scrapped an affordable housing project there. Now, this is one of the areas where Labor, I believe they said that they've promised to build 55,000 new social housing homes in their next term. The coalition, I don't believe, have given a figure on that. But there's obviously a lot more of these are in demand, given the housing prices. But the reason why this one was knocked back was because of locals, people living around there, who are able to afford their own houses and their own rentals. They don't like the idea of a bunch of, unemployed people in social
Bipedal
housing.
rape.
Cool.
Bipedal rape
This
engines.
happens every time. Every time they build one of these, basically the locals don't like it. And I completely understand because I actually used to live next to one myself. And, the police sirens were definitely a regular occurrence.
I will admit, coming into the studio to record back in those days was like a little fucking sketchy. I used to like check and look at my car and be like, is someone trying to break into this fucking thing?
Let me put on my landlord shawl for a second and say it also reduces the price of your fancy bloody properties when a basically fucking something that lowers the price of an area for quite a ways turns up right next to you. So
Well,
they're invested
all the
in
info
protesting that.
we were actually only ever robbed once, and that was in the backyard. They took my dumbbells.
Oh fuck!
Which-
They're getting swole.
I do remember you guys leaving the fucking workouts, little mini gym gear.
Because
out there,
I just left all that equipment outside. I figure it's not really something that people want to steal, especially given that it's heavy, like it's designed to be heavy.
But
yeah,
it wasn't nailed down, so they nicked it.
Yeah, but like that, I don't get like there was lots of other stuff, like loose stuff around, and they didn't take any of that. They just took the dumbbells that I had like multiple weights attached to, and they just took them. I don't really understand why.
Maybe the resale value is pretty high. People want to get swallow the whole fucking people getting into it. Hey, here's some cheap weights. Oh, fair enough. It cost you nothing
Yeah.
to nick it from
But
fucking
like,
Fenian.
but they left my squat rack, they left my barbell, they left all the other.
Were you
weights.
looking to get rid of them? Waiting for
Look,
the next council to chuck them out in the curb, and they wouldn't take it then. Oh.
I'm gonna say this, man. The average IQ of the fucking people in those houses around you, just by looking at them, was probably about fucking 3 standard deviations below retarded. So
I know. It just struck me as very weird. Like I went out there and I was like, "Hey, where are my dumbbells?" I was like, "No shit, someone fucking robbed them."
They were stolen by dumbbells.
Oh god. Okay. Anyway, moving on to industrial relations. One of the ministerial debates that has not occurred has been on industrial relations. So the current minister is Murray Watt, and the shadow is Michaelia Cash. She's kind of a veteran of the Liberal Party now, but she's refused to debate Murray Watt, and she accused him of struggling for relevance, which is an unusual thing. I guess maybe one of the reasons here is that industrial relations hasn't proven really to be a big issue for voters. But also, when you're going into an election where the cost of living is the biggest issue for voters, people are basically saying, okay, so you're talking about unions who want to earn their members more money. How can I be opposed to that? So these kind of policies that have been proposed by the Liberals have been unpopular. I think the best example would be the working from home arrangements with public servants. Remember, they just wanted to scrap that altogether. They've walked that back now. Even though Jane Hume...
Oh, will people forget about it?
Well, that's basically what Jane Hume said. She's like, oh, look, that policy of strapping work from home for public servants just hasn't reached its proper time yet.
Soon you will be forced, for no good reason, to get right the fuck back into the middle of the city.
Well, look, that's exactly the attack that Labor has been using on them. Since
fucking
then,
effective.
However, well, look, to be fair, though, Jane Hume has been rebuked on that. James Patterson, who's like the official campaign spokesman, has said no. That is just not part of their policy platform at all. Those bloody lazy public servants can still do all the work from home they want.
Nice politics of envy. I like it.
You know what? At some level of public servant, there needs to be like a room that the public can go into with like a garden hose and just hose them down.
Well, look, all they've really said about cutting the public service is they want natural attrition. So, like, if someone quits their job, they don't replace that job. That's how you cut down on it. You wait for people to quit.
Is this like Is this like the nuclear industry in fucking the US where they're just waiting for the old fogies to die off before they close down the power stations?
Kind of, yeah. Because remember, like they were talking about like cuts when Peter Dutton was talking about Australia having its own Doge, Department of Government Efficiency. That's what he was talking about, was actually sacking public servants. Well, all of that has actually proven very unpopular, which shows this is just sort of like an ideological pet favorite of Liberal Party voters. Unless you're a real dyed-in-the-wool Liberal Party voter, you don't care so much about attacks on the public service or on unions, all those kind of things. The average Liberal voter is not really convinced that those are good things. Now, Murray Watt, the IR minister, has also said that Labor would look to protecting penalty rates via legislation. So that's very unusual. I mean, usually, you know, all of this is left up to the Fair Work Commission or whoever the independent umpire is to set things like minimum wage, award wage, penalty rates, all that kind of stuff. But now, you know, I guess a big reason for wanting to do this is because of the gigification of the economy, and also just more and more people finding themselves in casual work where, you know, you don't get any sick pay or any holiday pay, anything like that. And, you know, those same people end up getting screwed over on weekends. You know, you work the Saturday, you work the Sunday, but you earn the exact same.
Yeah.
As during
If
the week.
not worse,
So,
for having done the outrageous thing of earned too much money.
yeah, that's right. So, yeah, plenty of people. I work on a Saturday, and I don't earn any more money at all. I get the exact same rate of pay. So, yeah, and that again, I think, generally speaking, even those people who might be inclined to vote coalition, no, they support things like penalty rates. You know, only if you're a real ideological free marketeer would you come down and go, no, you know, like this is only for the
Fucking
market.
libertarians, team.
Yes, that's right. And the libertarian movement is dead. Okay, like not just in America, but
fucking
everywhere.
undead. It'll pop up. It'll pop up to be a cunt of a thing. It's fucking rat poison.
Okay, moving on to climate and energy. So Albanese has actually confirmed that Labor will put in Australia's name to host the International Climate Change Conference. So it would be held in South Australia, and this is in partnership with Pacific nations. Of course, the ones, you know, most under threat by climate change because of rising sea levels. Now,
why wouldn't they do it in Darwin? That's closest to the Pacific, isn't it? Fucking show how lovely it is up there.
Imagine how many fucking like fag hags, like imagine how many fucking like government functionaries and absolute shitbags getting their absolute shit rocked by a bunch of Aborigines.
Now, look,
accidentally driving over them on the way up. Fuck.
Dutton said that he will scrap these plans. He said something like the bill of hosting the conference would be like $20 billion. He may have been exaggerating a little bit there. But no, these conferences do cost money. And Albanese basically was saying that, no, this would bring more money into circulation in Australia. I'm like, well,
it's just like the Olympic Park here in Sydney.
This is not like the Olympics where you get, you know, money from tourism and stuff. You're just talking about a political conference. No, that's stuff that you spend money on. You don't make money from it.
You take it to the convention center, cunt. That's what they're for. But they're probably going to make a fucking arena for this Olympic thing if we win it. Fucking win in quotations.
No, but it'll just be like every other bloody conference. We get together, we agree on a bunch of targets that ends up pushing up energy prices, And then we dump a whole heap of foreign aid money on a bunch of third world countries because they're apparently suffering from the effects of climate change.
Foreign aid for foreign aids.
Yes, that's basically what it is. Okay. Now, in Queensland, where you do have the Libs, the LNP in power, they've been accused of covering up an explosion at the Callide power station. Now, this happened back on the 4th of April. So it's a power plant in central Queensland. And that was because there was an explosion at this site, which, as you can imagine, is a pretty serious thing. Now, the Energy Minister, David Janetsky, was briefed on the very day that happened, but he never mentioned it, and there was never any kind of public announcement on it. So he had to actually be asked about this, like, directly by media, like, what's going on.
That's pretty bloody unusual.
Yeah, it is. So this is one of those things where it's given Labor somewhat of an opportunity to say, oh, look, this is actually the real reason that electricity prices are going up, because of, like, poor management of the stations by incompetent libs or something. I don't know if people are going to buy that narrative. That said, it was pretty stupid if this guy thought, like, that something as big as a plant explosion could be kept secret.
Think
Oh,
again,
lie,
my man.
Why on earth he would think that? But nonetheless, he's getting grilled over that. But still, generally what they're doing in terms of these climate targets and projects in Queensland, they've actually walked a lot of it back. They scrapped a hydrogen project, for example. They also scrapped, I think it was the 2030 emissions targets too, which I think they did in Northern Territory as well. So, they're doing some sensible things in terms of energy. Now, Peter Dutton has said that he now no longer opposes tax breaks on electric cars.
Ooh.
So,
it's because of the fucking Teslas. I bet you it.
yes. So, electric vehicles, they are exempt from the fringe benefits tax, but also I think their production is, subsidized by the government. So there's, a few different things that happen in the production of these vehicles that overall make them cheaper, even though your average EV is definitely more expensive than, your average petrol-driven car. I mean, if you compare, like, the Tesla Y to a Toyota Camry, it's probably like 30 grand more expensive. Even though, like, in terms of the quality of the vehicle, they're pretty much the same.
But does it drive itself? I've seen all sorts of fun little options of this thing. It'll drive itself. It won't let you fiddle while it's driving itself, as in you're not allowed to look at the phone. It'll start angrily buzzing at you. But I have an appreciation for electric cars, not because it's going to drive your ass to work, but because I kind of like the idea of centralizing the fuel onto the power grid, just because probably pretty more efficient than chucking it into a fuel tank and then chucking it into tanker and then chucking it into your fuel tank.
Maybe. I was going to say, you know why Elon actually introduced the self-driving part to these cars?
Because people are lazy.
No, it was actually a practice that his father did, where his father would drive kind of loosely with his hands / like lower thigh, while he had his ankles behind his head, viciously masturbating.
Fucking A.
So I had to. No, it actually pissed me off. He was tweeting earlier today. I was like, why would you buy a truck that doesn't drive itself? It's like, dude, your fucking Cybertruck is ass. It is literally glued on stainless steel, a cast aluminium fucking frame. Like, my God, what the fuck were you thinking? Who designed this bullshit?
Homer Simpson.
Almost, man. You know what? Honestly, like, I know right now it's like a leftoid thing to hate Elon Musk, even though like he used to be
shit on it. To shit on the Tesla.
You see Loretta's favorite man back in the day, but like, honestly, dude, like that guy just needs to go get fucked.
He's the future face of fucking money.
And people believe he's a fucking rightoid, even though that every fucking opportunity he has to do it, he's talking about how this country needs infinitely more Indians.
Oh, but look, he raised his arm once.
Yeah, there we go.
My heart goes out to you.
Yeah, that's next time. Next time we have a Happy Hitler moment, I'll just make sure to say my heart goes out to you.
Okay, so last story on climate and energy. The Australian report this with glee. They say that a Labor-linked climate charity has been receiving thousands of dollars from clean energy firms blacklisted in the United States over concerns that they use slave labor. With the Green Lobby Group and its senior advisor, Simon Holmes Accord, who remember is the guy behind Climate 200, having visited a Chinese company accused of forced labor practices. Yeah, you hear this a lot, like, in terms of the production of lithium batteries as well, and I guess cobalt as well. Is that right, Nolsey? Have I got that correct?
Yeah.
Where essentially the production is being used, by slave labor or something pretty damn close to it. So,
well, I guess they just these labor functionaries just heard forced labor. I'll have some of that.
Well, okay, so this climate charity, it's called the Smart Energy Council. It has charity status, even though it has donated money to the ALP.
As you do.
And it also runs campaigns for voters to bin the coalition. So they are responsible for the disputed claim that the opposition's nuclear policy will cost $600 billion. And this is something that Albo keeps repeating.
Oh, yeah.
Like building the 7 reactors would have a total cost of $600 billion.
It's a scary number.
I love...
What?
Yes,
over half a trillion.
I love where they have to admit where they got these numbers from. They literally found the most expensive nuclear reactor in fucking America, doubled the cost of it because that was built, middle of last decade. So they just doubled it for no apparent reason. And then also like basically added like a 220% modifier to every other like use / consumable cost with it. And that's where they got that number from. They're like, well, but yeah, we're just being realistic with inflation and stuff. It's like, dude, fucking...
So the highest end nuclear power plant,
down.
Double everything again. Fuck my life.
If you look at some of the estimates that the Institute for Public Affairs have put out, the Labor government has already spent well over $1 trillion on renewable energy projects. I don't know why Peter Dutton doesn't use that, in response. I guess it's just because he doesn't want to look like he's anti-renewable energy.
Yeah, it does seem pretty toxic situation to be in, to be anti green energy when you've invested so much fucking money into it. The whole fucking country has. It's kind of like in the UK, if you were to go out against the NDIS after, people were basically worshipping it like a messiah.
And that doesn't account for the amount that power bills are pushed up either. That's just the government dime, how much they're personally paying in the form of public works. That's all that is. Okay. So moving on to Aboriginal news. So there was a story that I saw from the Australian that caught my eye. And they were profiling a couple in New South Wales who wanted to adopt children. And they said that they did not care about the race or the cultural background or anything of these children. It was just like, we just basically want to take kids that are most in need. Well, they ended up getting two Aboriginal kids in foster care.
Yeah, got what they
And
asked for.
yeah, but now what's happening is that there's something going on where what is it? Sorry, I forgot the name of the department here. But anyway, basically, they're saying that they can't provide a culturally safe environment for these two Aboriginal kids to grow up in, simply because, well, the parents are not Aboriginal themselves.
Mm.
So this is they use this term cultural safety, which is like kind of held up as just as important as physical safety.
What? Not enough
And
red ochre dirt in the backyard, and not enough
Not enough,
fucking pictures of
not enough
goth art.
alcohol-fueled domestic violence and child rape.
Oh yeah, these doors haven't been bashed down because somebody was spending too long on the dunny.
So, someone hasn't punched a hole in the wall and started shitting in it.
The second dunny
I
in the
love, like,
household.
I love bringing that up because people think that's a fucking joke, and it's like, dude, just type in "living the dream Aboriginal house" into YouTube, man.
I fucking tried that. It didn't come up, the kind of a thing.
Oh, well, you got it. So, what did you type in?
Living the dream. I think it came up with US things, or it's some skit. I want to do it again, see what happens, but don't let me distract.
But yeah, no, that was fucking hilarious. So culturally safe. That is, ooh, buddy. So what do you have to physically do to be like to culturally and safe in an environment? Do you have to like get drunk every single night and beat the child? Is that what you have to do?
well, no, but look, what they're
Oh,
actually
it did come
saying,
up. You beauty.
parents are saying that they have been raising the two children so that they can still have a connection to their Aboriginal culture. So I'm sure they're probably providing it in a much healthier way than Aborigines would themselves, because that would include the kind of methods that you guys were just talking about, punching holes in walls and whatnot.
Mm.
Whereas a white couple would just be getting them to sing these fake Aboriginal songs that are actually written by English teachers. You know, like that bloody Wanju song. Everyone in WA says Wanju now. Have you noticed that, Nolsey? Which means welcome.
Oh yeah, God fucking Christ. I
So
think
that's
every single like pro indigenous like activist person should be just like chained to the center of that fucking pagoda in Northbridge for like one night. And I think that would have a cleansing healing experience for them.
yeah.
Fucking A.
Okay, so sorry, it was the Department of Communities and Justice in New South Wales who are considering
Shit.
taking these children away. Now, this is a very typical thing for the Australian newspaper to comment on, because they're basically running a campaign to reverse laws that preference Aboriginal families when it comes to the fostering of Aboriginal children. In other words, they're only sent to like a white couple if there's absolutely no one else in the Aboriginal community that they can find. And that's basically what happened here.
All right, no
These
volunteers, so they got them. They're the
Yeah.
most needy poor bastards to that.
Well, the first thing they do is look to extended family. If none of them are suitable, then they look to Aboriginal foster parents, and if none of those are suitable, then they'll give Whitey a chance, and that's what's happened here. But because they're apparently not providing a culturally safe environment for those children to grow up in, the DCJ is looking to actually take them back off them.
All right,
Oh.
that's pretty
All
fucking
right.
horrid.
Stripping children from homes. It's, I don't know. What we fucking bashed for that last time, even though that actually last time was way less egregious.
Yeah, but this one's being done to punish Whitey.
But also, just what annoys me about this is that, like, I'm sure this couple are very well intentioned, but they've been forced into these completely backwards priorities. It's like, no, have your own kids, raise some white children. why do you feel like it's your responsibility to look after Aboriginal children just because they can't look after their own? It is not your
Yeah, basically.
responsibility.
It does come down to that. And they did say the most needy, and they fucking got them. Like,
Yeah.
they might be race blindish, at least in their intentions. And good on them for being charitable. But yeah, probably going to be a bit even more miserable to taken away from them. Anyway, back into the fucking
Okay. Well,
back into the
the
system
other
they go.
story on Aboriginal news was on this Aboriginal corporation here in WA called Wajak. So it looks like they're going broke.
Thank God.
So WA made a $50 million trust payment, a part of the Southwest Native Title settlement.
As you do.
But professional trustees have cut off the Wajak Aboriginal Corporation.
As you do.
Yeah. Now, the reason why is because of, well, as you can imagine, blatant mismanagement of money in this Aboriginal corporation. So also, the Perth airport, which is under construction for a $2.5 billion runway, their project is among Wajak's clients. What that means is all of these projects are being built, like this plane runway. They're on native title land. They're on so-called Aboriginal land. And that means if they want to develop the project there, they've got to give money to that corporation, whatever Aboriginal corporation it is. Here is the Wajak Corporation.
It's a pretty good money-raising regime then.
Well, again, like literally, they wanted to rake that poor guy out in the middle of Midland over the coals of 2J because he looks at paper, a bridge over a river on his property.
Yeah, which we covered a lot. So
anyway,
Wajak, Wajak has been issued with a default notice that signals a trustee's intention to give the corporation a chance to fix problems or be replaced as the body representing the interests of Noongar people across Perth. So all this money, quite generous payments too, that they would have been receiving for these various projects built on native title land, they may be missing out on simply because they're misappropriating and mismanaging so much of their money themselves.
I reckon they might fucking signal the flag of protest and get them to give it back to them, even though they are shitting it up on new cars, whatever the fuck. I mean,
and gambling and booze and control. Yeah,
gambling and
now,
and historically speaking, maybe also sexually assaulting children, considering the last big head of a Perth Aboriginal-based protest movement / organization did that as well. Just going to put that on the table. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm not alleging anything.
But happened in the past. Potentially happening again here.
The very same corporation, the Wajak Corporation, their chairman has been accused of screaming at his chief executive, telling her she had better watch out, woman, as you're on notice. Now, another board member said to the same person, to the chief executive, Lisa Dobrin, who is not Aboriginal, "I'm sick of you white people. Sit down and shut up." These exchanges were somehow leaked to the Australian newspaper. So it shows that, you've obviously got white people working behind the scenes with these corporations, and then you've just got a bunch of political Aborigines who are quadroon, octoroon, very impure. If you look at the photos of them, they don't look Aboriginal. And that's all these corporations are. It's rent seeking.
Yeah, again, who was it that approached us with that term? It was a Victorian from memory, and it was talking about how you have people who really aren't Aboriginal at all. They really aren't, and they're in Melbourne. Like their entire identity is being politically Aboriginal.
Well, I got the term from David Hiscox back when we did
Okay, well, yeah, then
XYZ
it probably was his actually. Yeah.
He would, yeah, that's what he would refer to them as, and I thought that was a good term. Um, like they wear their Aboriginality as a chip on the shoulder, and as a reason as to why you must give them special privileges. In this case, a big chunk of native title money.
And here we see the totem pole as well. The totem pole is fucking they're one rung up of women. Women's supposed to be a sacred people in this liberal society. Not here. Not when Aboriginal isn't involved.
Okay, let's move on to crime. So another proposal from the coalition, they would pilot a child sex offender disclosure scheme. In other words, a registry where convicted child sex offenders would have their details recorded.
Kind of like in America?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, they have a thing where when they move to a street, they have to walk up and down the street, letting everybody know what the fuck they are.
Yeah. Now, Peter Dutton has also announced a $355 million strike team that, would be part of the AFP, and that would be to combat illicit drug importation. So, yeah, this is part of the coalition's tough on crime package. So they've also got a $750 million Operation Safer Communities program. So that would establish a national drug enforcement and organized crime strike team. That would deal with drugs, tobacco, and vapes. So I assume they're talking about the illegal tobacco and vape market.
Chop.
And then, of course, the pilot program on the sex offender registry. They say at the end here that this is like a US style syndicate busting operation.
Got to get that tax money on the tobacco.
Oh wait, also no, something else that would make part of this strike force would be anti-Semitic crimes.
I wonder where the majority of this fucking money's going to then.
Yeah, and you know what? They needn't worry about that because all these anti-Semitic crimes are not happening anymore.
Doesn't mean they can't be found. Esoterically
the
found.
Caravan plot revealed to be a hoax, and guys like us were saying from day one that it was fake. As soon as that was exposed, suddenly, all those attacks just suddenly stop.
Well, the memo went through to basically, hey, if we go any further after we've been found out fucking spray painting, shit's gonna go bad. So you fucking shot your load. Pull your heads in. And so they did. Like a monolith.
Yep. Okay, so last story on crime. In South Australia, they've got a trial going for cameras that detect mobile phone use. So there has been 46,476 fines been issued for talking on a mobile phone. And one of the people who they caught apparently was caught 46 times and had over $27,000 worth of fines issued.
Oh, that man must be a millionaire.
That's got to be pathological.
41 times. 41 times. Holy, $27,000 in fines for talking on your mobile. Jeez.
It's like one of those people who parks in overtime on a fucking in Bondi Beach, one of those parking spots. You can fucking afford to sit there forever.
Yeah, by the way, fuck you, Fluoride. Parking our beaches is free.
No. Mate, they got I remember running out basically every 15 minutes for the boss's little insert more money because you can't go over 15 minutes and just going back and forth all day until my shift was over.
Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah. That's Bondi for you.
All right. I'm going to move to the States and party political news coming from the States. We'll start off with the Victorian Liberal Party. Now, we all know that former Victorian Liberal leader John Pesutto was found guilty of defaming Moira Deeming for associating her with neo-Nazis. I can't remember what the figure was. I think it might have been about $350,000. It was a lot of money anyway. He owes a shitload of money. Plus, he would have to pay court costs as well, of course, plus his own. So what this would actually mean, if he were left to foot the entirety of that bill, John Pesutto would be bankrupt, meaning, he literally does not have that amount of money to be able to pay, so he would have to declare bankruptcy. Now, there's a little problem with that. You are not allowed to be a sitting member of Parliament if you are bankrupt. And I believe actually if you have ever been bankrupt in the past as well, I think that also makes you ineligible to sit in
That's
Parliament.
an interesting little law. So
Yeah.
no unmoneyed plebs allowed.
Yeah, that's right. You've got a dispute going on in WA actually with Rod Cullerton, who used to be a member of One Nation. He apparently is contesting this federal election under some party that he formed. I can't remember what they're called. And yeah, like he's meant to be ineligible because he's previously been declared bankrupt. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with him. But the point in this story is that this would be extremely bad PR for the Liberal Party, where you've got a case of a former leader declaring bankruptcy because he was found to have defamed a member of his own party, and then all of a sudden he is forced out of Parliament. That, of course, would force a by-election in his electorate. That the
no
Liberals
paupers in this establishment. Get out. Fuck.
Right. So what the question that this then raises is, should the Liberal Party, via what's called the Cormac Foundation, that apparently has up to $120 million worth of assets, should they simply bail out John Pesutto here? Now, remember, they did not pay for his legal defense against Moira Deeming, and by and large, the rank and file members of the Victorian Liberal Party did not support John Pesutto because they actually thought what Moira Deeming was doing, that is attending what was effectively an anti-trans rally, was a good thing. So the rank and file support just isn't there. But of course, like I said, then you'd be forcing a former leader out of Parliament and forcing a by-election, which just would also look shocking for the party.
So now they give a shit about him. Just enough that it enables their power. Fair enough.
Yeah. So they're left with this dilemma, like, do they actually bail this guy out or not?
Oh, my money's on they bail him out. Right. Unless it's fucking they're set to lose it. Yeah, they're gonna bail him out.
Yeah, I think they'll do that, and they'll probably just encourage him, hey, next election, don't run. Okay. I think that's probably what will happen.
It's a hell of a deal.
And that's a hell of a end to a political career, isn't it? you become leader for a year and a bit. You spectacularly lose a defamation suit, and then you're forced out of Parliament for bankruptcy. Damn.
But I did it my way.
Yeah. So not exactly a top-notch legacy that this man is leaving behind.
He stood up for trans rights.
Yeah, and he paid for it. He got exactly what he deserved. Okay, so the Liberal Party here in WA, we of course have our total L-plater opposition leader, Basil Zemplers, who, only got interested in politics a few months ago when people started talking about him being a good asset for the Liberal Party. He's already had his first public brain fart, and that is that he wants WA to launch a bid to host the 2030 Commonwealth Games. Yeah,
What?
as if we have the facilities here in Perth to do that.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're going to have to bring that over here to Sydney.
Yeah. Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, I'm sure they could do it, but no, not Perth. Now, he did concede, it's like, oh, well, having the actual Olympics in Perth, okay, that would be a bit too much. But Commonwealth Games on a smaller scale, he seems to think that we would have the facilities and the infrastructure to pull off something like that. The Labor Party actually did say that this was a brain fart. They used that language and a thought bubble. And I
Fucking brain
think,
eel team.
what?
A fucking brain eel. They had a brain eel.
Oh, right.
You don't ask where that comes from. You don't want to know the answer.
I'm sure I don't. But no, I've got a feeling this won't be the last brain fart that we get from this guy who, even though he's leading a political party, has zero political experience unless you count his time as Lord Mayor.
Yep, which is like kind of an honorific, really.
Yeah. I mean, you should at least spend some time in cabinet before you become the leader, But no, because he's this, God, I hate this term. You heard that one they say personality?
Oh, God.
It's a nice personality you're wearing on your shoulder.
But apparently that's what Basil Zemplis is. And he's like,
Hey, welcome to Perth.
So when did we allow Mike Tyson to fucking make all the euphemisms for Perth? He got a nice personality.
oh, man. I mean, no one else has heard, like Fluoride, you'd never heard of Basil Zemplis, had you? No. Yeah, it's only within Perth people know him. And even then, he's not all that famous.
Yeah, you get a bloke named Bazza.
So the South Australian Libs. So we've covered that their former leader, David Spears, did plead guilty to 2 drug charges revolving around cocaine use. He was photographed snorting a line of cocaine, I think, in his own house. So a court document has revealed that he also supplied cocaine to 2 men, and one of those men was actually attending Narcotics Anonymous. So I suppose that that's a good market. And I should point out that the charges surround actually the supply of cocaine, not the possession.
All right, not him doing his own stash. All right.
Yeah, so not as some big supplier like Tanya Plibersek's husband, but just
a moderated, middling supplier.
Yeah, just sort of supplying it to people around him is what he's been accused of, and there's
treating him to some hospitality.
If you guys watch Breaking Bad, but there's this part of the show where Jesse, the younger guy, him and his mates actually go to drug counseling sessions for the purpose of supplying methamphetamine to the people there, because they figured it's
basically get customers. They can't say no.
That's it. And so that's what it looks like actually happened here. He supplied cocaine to a recovering drug addict, which is a great thing to do.
Fucking, that's a treat.
That's why we need to get Russell Brand, and we need to fucking stick him in the leg with a heroin needle so he shuts the fuck up.
Okay, now to the West Australian Greens. Homosexual. They had planned to have a dance party fundraiser. So just
dancing on graves? Fuck.
Pretty close to it. They wanted to hold it on Anzac Day. Now that was very deliberate, because on Anzac Day, for example, Labor and the Coalition are suspending their campaign. It's done out of respect, like when the Pope died, they suspended the electoral campaign. The Greens prefer to do the opposite. They will actually hold an event where, they would effectively be dancing on the graves of diggers. And we know that, the Greens like this kind of thing. At the councils that they control, they will not celebrate Australia Day, or they'll do like day of mourning instead, fly the flags at half mast, that kind of
A
thing.
day of spitting on Whitey.
Yeah, Adam Bant will not do a press conference with the Australian flag behind him. All sorts of shit like that. They basically, they disrespect Australian cultural rights in a variety of different ways, and this was going to be one of them. But they've actually capitulated here, and they've called it off. So even that, just for the time being, proved too controversial for the Greens. But they'll bring something like this back again. Don't worry about that.
Oh yeah, when it's no longer election time, fucking shove it down everyone's throats.
Yeah. So now they're saying that the Greens Perth candidate, Sophie Greer, will attend the Anzac Day dawn service.
Well, I don't think she's fucking welcome to.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we don't want her there, So maybe it would be better if she just goes off to her bloody dance party instead. Okay, now, to the federal Greens. They've got a 19-year-old candidate for the seat of Franklin who has gotten section, oh God, I can't remember what it is. Is it section 41? Anyway, the part of the Constitution that says you can't be the citizen of another country. So he has inherited New Zealand citizenship from his dad. He was unaware of that, but nonetheless he has it. So that makes him ineligible to sit in Parliament. Now, because we are only a week and a half
Section
away...
44.
44, okay, I was close. Because we're so close to an election,
Section 44.
This is like when Pauline Hanson was disendorsed from the Liberal Party when she was the member for Oxley. They don't have time to reprint the ballots. They're already done. Where it's too far.
You can't fucking scribble someone else's name on it.
Yeah. So that means that this guy and his affiliation to the Greens Party is still going to be printed on those ballots on election day. Now, the Greens have said that even though this guy can't be elected to Parliament because he's ineligible, they're still telling everyone to vote for him because the Greens would be the beneficiaries of electoral funding. Because remember, that's how electoral funding is determined. It's how many votes your candidate gets. There's a certain, like for every vote you get X amount of dollars. I forget what it is. But this is apparently anyway, this is perfectly legal. They can do that.
Oh, yeah, I guess it doesn't make no difference. But
yeah, I mean, you can campaign for a guy who is ineligible to sit for Parliament so that you get as many votes as possible and therefore get as much electoral funding as possible.
Oh, boy.
Well.
Definitely cheating there. But
legally cheating. The worst kind of cheating.
How could we have known that, it would be ineligible to sit? We couldn't have known that.
We can't unprint these ballots. We can't fucking scribble his name out and just say Greens on there. Unreasonable. Just vote for this guy who, literally illegal to put this man as the guy. The guy.
And the worst part is this is going to trigger an absolute shit ton of people.
We'll talk about Clive Palmer now and his Trumpets of Patriots party.
Fuck.
So these are basically, as you would expect, these are basically all fuck-ups from Palmer. He likes making these. So one of their candidates he previously worked in health services, but he got banned because he was deemed to pose a risk to the health and safety of the public. He also claims to have a PhD in psychology, but after a police investigation, it found out that he fraudulently obtained this by simply buying it online. We've all heard of
someone else's PhD, but a PhD nonetheless.
Yeah, like it's still like officially a PhD, which just makes no sense to me because it's like, okay, he didn't sit the course, he bought it. Like that means he doesn't have one, surely. But also, this guy, he was going by the name of David Kay. Oh, sorry, he still is endorsed as a candidate for Trumpet of Patriots,
Jesus.
but his real name is Ali Davut Sarikua. He's
You
some
can't
sort
go
of
under a
like
pseudonym, can you? That shouldn't be in there. Shouldn't
he
be
might have
fucking allowed.
legally changed it though. I'm not sure.
Ah, fair enough.
He might have legally
Just,
changed it.
just so
But
people don't fucking take one look at the name and say, yeah, nah, yeah, nah.
that's why I like back when Barack Obama was running for president, a lot of the Republicans were referred to him as B. Hussein Obama
Yeah.
because his middle
Barack
name was Hussein.
Hussein.
Mm.
He's a Hawaiian, isn't he?
Is what?
Barack Obama's Hawaiian. That's what I remember from all that bullshit way back when. He's from
Yeah,
Hawaii.
the
Yeah,
fucking birth certificate said Hawaii.
That was when Donald Trump was trying to say that he was not an American citizen or was not born in America.
Just one of the states.
Yeah, that was when Trump was playing the long game. That was part of his plan to become president one day, I think.
Oh yeah.
You got to give Trump the credit there in terms of just how clever he worked things. That was all
Yeah.
part of the plan.
The long game can probably go back to his father as well, because kind of intergenerational dynasties.
Yeah. Okay, so another candidate that they have endorsed is a man who is currently out on bail for a number of offences that include stalking and weapons charges.
Only the best.
So Michael Norman Jessup, he's actually running against Peter Dutton. So that is in the electorate of Dixon, which I should remind people is actually a marginal seat. Dutton only holds it by about 2%, and his every year he manages just to hold it by the slim margin. So I guess he sort of made it a notional, safe LNP seat because he's sort of built a brand over the years. But no, this guy doesn't have a chance of unseating.
But does he have a chance of spoiling him by having a whole lot of money and dragging a couple of people away from him?
Well,
Good fuck over Dutton.
Like we've talked about how the coalition has like steadily been losing support in the polls since the electoral campaign started. Some people are putting that down to Peter Dutton being associated with Donald Trump and Trumpisms. And right now, like globally, Donald Trump is not very popular because of the whole tariff thing and the trade war with China and that kind of stuff. In Australia, though, we have the only person who's really trying to mimic Donald Trump is Clive Palmer. And that's the whole purpose of this party being called Trumpet of Patriots. That name is very deliberate.
Well, he's
So
got the
some
money to
people
change his name every now and then, so fucking A.
Mm.
So some people are hoping that maybe Peter Dutton can win back some of that support because that association with Trump will disappear and people will instead associate Clive Palmer with Donald Trump rather than Peter Dutton.
He's being a heat sink. All right, that's a pretty nice way of putting it. I'm more Trump than Dutton. All right,
Yeah.
so maybe this shit will help him. Fuck.
Now remember, Clive Palmer may have also won the election for the Liberal Party back in 2019 when Bill Shorten was the leader. That's because they spent, if you add it all up, the marketing and advertising that Palmer spent during that election, it was actually around $80 million. It was an enormous amount of money. But
I remember the fucking the yellow signs up and about Sydney.
Yes,
I remember people driving by and cursing at them.
But if you guys remember the advertising back then, back in 2019, it wasn't really pro-Palmer advertising. It was anti-Labor advertising.
Yes.
They just attacked Labor the whole time. This election, if you look at Palmer's advertising, he's going after the uniparty. He's trying to say that Labor and the coalition are the same, and therefore, you've got to vote for a viable third party candidate.
Which seems like an efficient tactic.
Maybe Palmer will cop some of the flack. But then you've got Jacinta Price, who actually said, "Make Australia great again." I don't know if you guys saw that. But also, just the slogan that the Liberal Party have decided to stick with is "Get Australia back on track." Now, that is very similar. That's very similar because you're talking about like a bygone era, and can we get back there? And that's exactly what "Make America Great Again" meant.
Fucking nostalgia feels.
Yes, that's what the Libs are doing. So I don't know if maybe they regret going with that slogan. And finally, on Trumpet of Patriots, a candidate who is still going to appear on the ballot as part of the Trumpet of Patriots is actually urging voters to put him last in his own ballot.
Ooh.
Now, why is this? Well, because the chairman of the party is Clive Palmer. So at the end of the day, he gets to make decisions like where preferences go. So they recently revealed their how to vote cards for this particular electorate. This is in Flinders in Victoria. And they've actually given preferences to the Teals. Labor and the Greens. Yeah, so the Teals, Labor and the Greens have all been put ahead of the Liberal Party for this seat of Flinders. Now, the guy who is endorsed here, Jason Smart, he said that at no stage was he ever consulted over where preferences were going, and therefore he is now telling everyone, don't vote for me. In fact, put me last. So
it's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Can you imagine that happening like in Labor or the coalition or something? One of your own candidates saying, put me last. Like, something like this could only happen with Palmer.
What a joke. What a fucking joke.
Every time. His campaign is a fucking joke. Every single time. He pisses up all this money to just make himself look like a
Every time I see one of his fucking... Yeah, every time I see one of those political fucking ads, back in 2019, or when he ran again, or when that poor bastard had to be told that he was the last member of the fucking party and therefore de facto leader.
Theo Wang. He didn't know if he was the leader in the Senate.
I'm the fucking leader? What the fuck?
I want to fucking kill myself.
Where he was. That guy just had no spatial awareness. Maybe because he was Asian. I don't know.
Oh, you fucking beat me to it.
Okay. Let's move on to the Teals. Now, a candidate in Darwin has been accused of covering up his anti-fracking activism.
Yeah.
He's denying this. He says he's been completely open about it. But the thing is, though, he never advertises it, never openly talks about it. I think that was the same thing with David Pocock. Pocock did anti-fracking stuff where he chained himself to a fence or something. That's what this bloke did too. Typical kind of environmental activism.
Yeah, if Pocock wants to stick around, he's really going to need to change his tune on fucking energy policy, because otherwise he is fucking out. I can already see in the little tack ads against him that I occasionally get on fucking Twitter, that they're basically just calling him a non-decision making, indecisive hippie, which unfortunately, as it currently stands, that sticks.
Yeah, and it basically just makes him look like a Greens candidate who's a radical environmentalist. And yeah, that in this election is not very popular.
It was basically he got in because of economic reforms and minor not actually doing it, or has he actually even really attempted at this point, but small social services reforms, and then he proceeded to use all of his political capital to do that, which pissed people right the fuck off.
Okay, now talking about Allegra Spender again in the Teal held seat of Wentworth. She was actually trailing right behind the Liberal candidate now. So Ro Knox, who is the Liberal Party candidate in Wentworth, she was polling at 47% on the primary vote, with Allegra Spender on only 28%. Then you've got Labor on 15 and the Greens on 10. So yeah, no, this seat's going to go right back to the Libs again. And yeah, this is one of the ones I was talking about. These inner city seats that the Teals took from the Liberals, they're all going back to the Liberals in this election, I bet. Okay. All right, so in the seat of Kooyong, which is held by Monique Ryan, and this was taken off Josh Frydenberg, she is claiming that she doesn't know what push polling is. Now, for those of you who don't know what push polling is, that's when you get a phone call from someone who asks for your views on a range of different political issues and then tells you which party or candidate you are most aligned to. However, you make sure you ask a bunch of questions that the person is likely to agree to. And then at the end, you say, oh, considering you agreed with all of those policy proposals, the candidate that you would be best suited to vote for would be Monique Ryan, would be the actual candidate, the Teal candidate that they are ringing up to promote in the first place. Now, these, if you're wondering, that is legal to do. I think there's a big question mark on whether such a tactic should be legal, because that's trying to make itself look like completely impartial political advertising, even though those people calling you up clearly have an agenda, clearly are trying to convince you to vote for a particular candidate, but they're masking the way they're doing that.
I think everyone's experienced one of those calls over the course of their life. Like, I remember having this one Indian lady ask me like a whole bunch of like, do you like money? Do you like policy give you money? I'm just like, okay, I know where this is going, so I just hung up there. But yeah, man, fuck.
Right. So a number of people have been receiving these calls, or they've been getting texts that follow a very similar formula. And Monique Ryan has basically said that she just doesn't know that this is happening. And I guess they can sort of plead ignorance because they've always just got Climate 200 working in the background for them. Remember, that's who finances them.
Whatever happened to
but
Get Up?
The idea that she doesn't know about it, just no. Well, Get Up is still out there. I mean, they haven't had as much success. But I mean, Get Up you could argue, were responsible for like one of the first Teals. And that was the one that beat Tony Abbott back in 2019.
Yep.
So they got their independent candidate in the seat of Warringah, and they spent like all their money, like all of the campaign money Get Up had, they spent on just getting rid of Tony Abbott. That's how much they hated him. But yeah, as to what they're doing now, I'm not really sure. I haven't seen their name come up in the past couple of years.
Well, mission accomplished. What more did they need from them?
I mean, they've got Climate 200 doing their work for them now. So
yeah,
I don't want to play with you anymore.
Okay, now Monique Ryan is again just kind of showing how, yes, she is just like any other politician in that she's now just started to outright refuse questions. And I saw the video of this one. She had like what looked like her chief of staff standing next to her, basically advising her on what questions to answer and what not to answer. And then they would actually take down the name and details of the journalist who asked a political question that they could not answer at that point in time, and they took it on notice. In other words, they're supposed to get back to you. You know, once they figured out their scripted answer, then they'll give it to you. So yes, they're out there very much acting like typical politicians.
All right. Return to the norm.
and not as independents who don't fall prey to the trappings of the two-party system. Now, in the same seat. Sorry, this woman's name is Amelia Hamer. She is from the Liberal Party, so she was running against Monique Ryan, and she was accusing the Teals of releasing a dirt file on her. So it's shown that she was the grandniece of the former Victorian Premier Rupert Hamer, and that she was the beneficiary of a $20 million family trust fund. Now, really, the Teals attacking a Liberal candidate for being connected to big money? I mean, come on. Fuck's sake. Who is funding your campaign, for God's sake? You've got the biggest trust fund baby in the country funding the Teals here. Like,
yeah, but they don't like that being very well known, and nobody likes it if they know about it. So,
oh man. So that is just ridiculous. So no, the Libs are going to take this one back too, and I don't know. Maybe I kind of like that just because I fucking hate Monique Ryan. Okay. Lastly, on the Teals. A candidate in South Australia has accused the Peter Dutton of not supporting the bailout of the Whyalla Steelworks. So this was a bailout package that obviously was done under Labor, but it did receive the support of the coalition. It was $2.4 billion to save steelworks there. And it's also the reason why the South Australian Labor government pulled funding from a planned hydrogen plant, basically because they need to keep steel production up. They don't have the money for it.
Jesus. Cutting hydrogen in this day and age and in this political climate, yeah, they must be really desperate.
But again, this is one of those areas where you have to say, like, where the hell did the Teals get the gall to make this kind of criticism? Because this is actually precisely the kind of project that they would oppose. You know, they consider steelworks to be part of dirty industry. Therefore, you know, they want to close it down. And they don't want to give bailout packages to save jobs, to save blue-collar jobs. So, yeah, it's like, where the hell do they get the fucking gall to attack the coalition over this? All right, let's move on to the Muslim vote. Now, Muslim Australians, or many Muslim Australians, are saying that they have been failed by the Albanese government for their lack of support for Palestine, and also for failing to address the spike in Islamophobia in this country. It's such a silly term, but you know, if by that what you just mean like anti-Muslim sentiment, okay, yeah, there's probably been a bit. I would say, you know, something funny was going on when the Burgatory suddenly went up in flames. Even though police immediately released a statement saying that it was not politically motivated.
How the hell did they know?
They were still putting out the fucking flames when they said that. It's like, how can you jump to a conclusion like that? How do you know this wasn't politically motivated? Like,
are the police required by law not to lie to the public?
They are, but also, like, usually on something like that, when you're obviously at the very beginning of your investigation, you just don't comment at all. You know, you say, "Sorry, we don't know what's happened yet. We're investigating it. We'll get back to you." That's what you do. But no, in this case, Strader wasn't politically motivated. How the fuck?
I guarantee you that police department was given like the hey, say this wasn't politically motivated, otherwise we're going to have a whole bunch of Lebanese people rioting in the fucking streets and some synagogues burned. I guarantee you that's why. I guarantee you there's a memo in someone's fucking desk bin, probably long since thrown out now, considering this was like what, last year?
Fucking shredded, put through the shredder and burned.
No, yeah, because they didn't want people to think that Jews did it.
Well, yes, yeah.
That's all it was, you know. Just like when the caravan plot was revealed to be a hoax, fucking Avi Yemeni comes out and puts out a video saying, "Oh, look at the anti-Semites like claiming a victory here," and they're like, "But actually, this was to do with organized crime in Sydney." And then he points to
Who's
like,
organising the crime, Avi?
yeah,
It's like, how the fuck does organized crime benefit from an explosive caravan?
yeah. And by the way, they
Is it full
arrested
of
one
drugs?
person over that. They arrested one person who was that guy who was the former member of the Nomads bikie club. And even though they claimed that this had all these underworld connections, none of those figures were ever arrested over it.
Nope. I hope the 30 pieces of silver that boat got were worth it.
Okay, anyway. So in the Melbourne electorate of Calwell, you've actually got the Liberals and Labor fielding Muslim candidates. So yes, that's right. Even the coalition, like the Tories in the UK, they will run their own Muslim candidates as well.
Look at this brown man. Vote for me.
Yeah. So look,
Pretty fucking
we
hard.
are expecting to see that there's going to be swings away from Labor in these, more working class seats, particularly in Western Sydney, of course, where you've got a high Muslim population. But the thing is, though, they're not going to swing to the coalition. They may vote for the independents, they may vote even for the Greens because they feel like there's no one else. But there's no way they're going to vote for the coalition either. So that basically on a two-party preferred basis will not end up in a big difference because the preferences will simply flow back to Labor. So now they also pointed out that the candidates in the seat of Caldwell, even though they're fielding Muslim candidates, they're not really talking about Muslim issues, which of course is Islamophobia and support for Palestine. They're just kind of doing this more implicitly. Like, here, we'll give you an Arab. You can vote for an Arab, but we still won't talk about any of that stuff that you like.
They're going to wear blackface, and that's about as good as you're going to get.
Right. Now, one of the candidates running against Tony Burke, so this is one of those Western Sydney seats, Zayed Basuni, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, he said that he supports the dismantling of Israel and the establishment of one democratic Palestinian state that would encompass Israelis as well. So that is what is very often known as the one-state solution, where you abolish the state of Israel in favor of the state of Palestine, and you abolish all of the voting preferences that Jews get. And look, safe to say that would not turn into a very good scenario for the Jews living there. Fair to say. So anyway, that guy is originally from Cairo and is a local doctor and who's held to be like one of those community leaders. Anyway, he's one of the candidates who really does have a chance of unseating Labor because there are a lot of this is in the seat of Watson, and there are a shitload of Muslims who live there.
Well, you get what you fucking deserve, Labor. Fucking bring him in and go, how'd this happen? Shocked Pikachu.
It would be hilarious to see Tony Burke go, especially given, he did his citizenship blitz, where he handed out citizenship to all these migrants in the hope that they would vote Labor. And then in the end, they go and vote for a Muslim candidate. That would be so sweet to watch.
That would be fucking funny. Okay,
now on the other side of the coin, you've got a Sydney radical preacher, as they say, or fundamentalist, Wissam Haddad, who is actually taking part in a campaign for Muslims to just not vote at all. Now, some interpretations of Islamic law, Sharia, whatever, say that voting is haram. You shouldn't do it because politics is for Allah and Islamic law only. And therefore, like a party political system that where you vote on issues independently on a secular basis, well, that doesn't comport well with Sharia. So they're actually just saying, no, boycott the system, don't vote for anyone at all.
Two problems with that. First one, you're allowed to bullshit the system via whatever it is, staying in sight, whatever the heck that system is, of fucking over the country you're in. And the other one is, well, you're asking people to pay a fine, and therefore people are going to want to not pay the fine, and so they're going to go to those ballots to, money.
Yeah, I mean, look, he might be telling people, turn up on election day and get your name checked off, but then, hand in a blank ballot.
Draw a perfectly non-haram bloody wiener on the ballot.
Yes. I've got a friend from high school.
The camel vote.
Every election on both ballots, he writes scrap compulsory voting, and he puts that in the bin. So that's what he's done every election he's ever voted in.
I hate this place. Nothing works. He doesn't want to be here.
Like back when he first left the Labour Party, that's exactly what he told people to do. He was like, turn up and just put a blank ballot in.
What a shit
All right, now,
the ballot paper is for my schizophrenic ramblings.
Here in Western Australia, even though our election was a few weeks ago now, we've only just confirmed the overall makeup of our upper house, the Legislative Council, and One Nation have actually picked up 2 seats. So they got the last one that needed to be accounted for. And that actually means that WA has more One Nation upper house members than any other state or territory in the country. Now, before you rush to say that maybe that makes us a little based, well, Labor have got 16. I'm talking in the upper house here. The Greens have got 4. Legalised cannabis have 1. The Nationals have 2. The Liberals have 10. And the Australian Christians have 1. So if you're talking about like any kind of dissident right parties, you'd basically just be talking about the Australian Christians and One Nation. Well, they've got a total of 3 seats. Whereas between the Greens and legalised cannabis, they've got 5.
The apathy party.
Sorry, I forgot one. Animal Justice Party. They've got 1. And they're basically the same as Greens and legalised cannabis. Very similar platform.
Could be worse. There could be a sex party.
Oh, yeah.
You know that used to be a real thing, right?
Yeah, boy.
Yes, he does.
Just in case maybe you were joking. That was a real thing.
Wasn't it an actual prostitute that started that from memory?
Yes. Fiona Patton.
Yeah.
A sacred class nowadays. She's still a prostitute? Impressive.
No, she's still involved in politics.
That's what I said.
Oh, touche. Okay, now just the other thing quickly. We've talked about this a lot, but now that we have the overall makeup of the WA Parliament set in stone, we have confirmation that, yes, regional MPs now have less representation in WA. So in our last Parliament in the upper house, they had 18 MPs, and this time we have 11. So there you go. And we were told the whole time that regional representation would not be diminished as a result of reforming our voting laws.
And done by 7.
Well, don't worry though, because the Labor have announced that each one of those regions that is in rural Australia, they're going to get their own minister. So, you have minister for the whatever.
Minister for out in the boonies.
Yeah. And, these ministers, of course, will still have their electoral offices located in Perth. And it's just a show. It's just there to give the impression that they're there representing the regions when they're not. Okay, so we already kind of spoke about this story before, but on national security, this thing where the Russians were seeking to build a base in Indonesia, specifically in Papua, so right next to Australia, Albo has refused to say if the government knew Russia had made that request. Now, unfortunately, bit of bad organisation from Labor here. Murray Watt, their IR minister, actually said that no request had been made from Russia. So then they had to contradict him and say, no, we just don't know anything about it. But it is fair to say that, Labor would do a better job of associating Peter Dutton with Russia, because that's just sort of how the discourse works. Like people always go on about how Trump is pro-Russia.
The fuck?
Because he gave...
Pissgate. Yeah, he's being puppeted by Putin. He's got the strings because of Pissgate, and he's got the pitches.
Yes.
That fucking...
That's
I
what
still
I mean.
believe it. That's that cope of him being corrupt.
So anyway, Indonesia was quiet about this until very recently. Now, they put out a statement making 3 points. So number one, Indonesia has never granted permission to any country to build or possess a military base in Indonesia. Number two, as a country with a long-standing tradition of a free and active foreign policy, Indonesia will receive and permit military aircraft or vessels from other nations on peaceful missions to visit Indonesia. And number three, Indonesia has plans to build a satellite launch site in Biak. Discussions on this matter began several years ago, but have not yet resulted in any decision. So in other words, while they would support elements maybe of the Russian military passing through, they would not permit them to actually build a base. So, long way of saying no, the Russians aren't going to get their base.
I still believe that they're going to come, hand open, being like, no, Russia can definitely not get their base, but we just need a couple $100 million, just a couple $100 million. You can buy us another NBN network.
Okay, let's skip the bit on health because I think we've kind of covered that before. Basically, Labor won't be able to fund bulk billing across the board as they promised. But look, just quick story on COVID. So the Victorian opposition, the Liberals, have obtained an email exchange under Freedom of Information that shows Daniel Andrews announced Melbourne's first lockdown, their first COVID curfew, before it was recommended by public health experts. So it said that the health department did support a curfew. However, they had not advised Cabinet to impose one. Okay, but Daniel Andrews went and did it anyway. Well, the thing is, though, the health department would have made that recommendation or that advice in due time, considering they did say they supported a curfew. So I think that's kind of splitting hairs a little bit. They're just saying, oh, look, the Department of Health didn't have a rock solid piece of advice here on imposing the curfew, but we got it anyway. Well, what do you expect? What if they did the opposite? Then people would be saying that they would have been acting contrary to the advice of the Department of Health. So I don't know, splitting hairs there, I think.
They made the right decision before it came down the pipeline from the experts of, yes, you should do this. Huh? 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
Fucking flip that coin. Getting the shit done, getting the shit. And people's lives are on the line, by the way. But people's money
Yeah.
was also on the line.
And it's not like the Liberals would have done it differently. I mean, if you look in New South Wales, where you had Gladys in power, her lockdowns were just as draconian as
Get those people
So-
off the boats, get them into the public. Ah, shit, they were sick as fuck. Everybody lock the fuck down.
Yeah, that's right.
Also, we're not closing the borders.
All right, so on to education. So Peter Dutton wants to revitalise technical colleges. That was sort of a John Howard era scheme. So, technical colleges are just very similar to TAFE, and they specialise in trades, teaching things like carpentry. So he said he would spend $260 million on that. And that sort of stands in opposition to Labor's free TAFE program.
Ooh.
So I don't know which one is better here. I'd have to sit down and look at the detail of these. But the Libs say that the free TAFE program is poorly targeted and doesn't adequately address the skills shortage that we have, which, some people blame the housing crisis on. I would argue it's got very little to do with that, but anyway. Now, just on Catholic private schools, we've got some new data showing that Catholic education in the past 10 years has grown by 8.2%. Not surprising. We've covered a few times here how there is a general trend of people putting their kids from public into private schools. A lot of that is to do with white flight. You're getting ethnic minorities being enrolled in public schools that are causing disturbances in class, that are violent, that are picking on white students for being white. Yes, that is definitely a real thing. And so what a surprise, you pull your kid out and you put them in the local private Catholic school and you fork out that bit of extra money.
Worth every penny.
Yeah. Well, look, the other thing is they've also found that the parents who are sending their kids to those schools, 72% of them expect faith-based schools to operate according to their values and ethos. What a surprise. If you send your kids to a Catholic school, you expect them to instill Catholic values.
Best we can do is a giant fuck-off cross.
Now, despite all of this, the Greens are still saying that their own education policy would basically make it impossible for those Catholic schools to adhere to those values and ethos, because you couldn't, say, refuse to hire a homosexual teacher, right? Now, I don't believe there's ever been a case of where, a full-time teacher at a Catholic school has been sacked because they were gay. However, they have been refused employment because they're gay. That's true. That's happened. And that's the kind of thing that the Greens want to stamp out. But when you do that, it's not a Catholic school anymore, is it? If they can't implement policies according to their own values, then what are they? They're just as good as any other public school. And also, if you're a homosexual, why would you want to work there?
So you get in there, you fucking do what is natural for a gay man, you fucking ruin the reputation of the school, and ta-da, then you fucking create some little kids who become just like you as they grow up. That's what they want to go in there for. They see little kids who can be corrupted. They like the fucking idea of doing it.
Well,
and
yes.
Thank God these people are stopping them at the front door from getting in there and diddling kids.
But also because they simply just want to undermine the very Catholic foundation of that school. In other words, they want to turn
it's their religion
school into a non-Catholic school. That's why they want to work there. Why else? Why would you want to actually go and work for an institution that doesn't want to have anything to do with you in the first place, surely then it should be mutual that you don't want to know each other, that you don't want to have anything to do with each other. You
Yeah,
know,
unfortunately, that's not how
it's like
that works.
why would a Jew want to join a white nationalist organization, for
Because it's a
example?
religious experience of undermining
Right.
people,
But I mean,
undermining these things.
if they actually did want to do that, it could only be for the purpose of undermining our existence as a white nationalist organization. It could only be for that reason.
Yep. That's why the gay man wants to get in there, to ruin it as a fucking Catholic school. By hook or by crook,
Okay.
any way they can.
Now, I probably should have talked about this under foreign students, but anyway, students from Africa, Pakistan, and India have been reported as missing from universities. You know why? Because they are what they call phantom students. They're enrolled, but they don't actually exist. So this was exposed by the Queensland University of Technology. It revealed nearly half its foreign students had dropped out of their first year of study. The retention rate for international students dropped to an unusual and historic low of 53.6% because of an unusually high number of students who did not meaningfully engage from the outset. In
Huh.
other words, they weren't turning up to class.
Or just were unable
So
to do
they
these
said,
bloody classes in the first place. Couldn't even understand the language.
I
well,
still
they
remember
said
the Aboriginal grad students who would just sit in the quadrangle at Cat and day drink.
in a good circle. Yeah.
Unironically, like they're just practicing their culture. They're getting completely and utterly sloshed at like fucking 11 a.m.
The VB circle, except they have
Yeah.
shade this time.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is fresh evidence that some foreigners are paying for student visas to gain entry into Australia with work rights, only to drop out of those university places, thus being what they call a phantom student. You just get in to get the student 500 visa, and then you drop out. Who would have thought people were taking advantage of the system?
Wow.
That's what it's there for.
Oh, God. Okay, now, just last story in education. The Greens said that in the event that there's a minority Labor government with them included, they would push Labor to sign up to a $46.5 billion injection into the higher education sector for free university and TAFE.
That's going to be a popular position for the young'uns.
Yeah, and like they also support universal student loan forgiveness as well. Now, look, I've said before that, like, you can actually do things like hat-free university, but you still need to ration it. You still need to restrict it in some form. The Greens don't even want to do that. They just want to have, like, really low entrance scores that are still open to international students, and everyone just takes those courses for free. Well, I'm sorry, that is just not sustainable. You cannot run a system that way. It just won't work.
Good way to bleed a system.
Yes. The only time we had free university in Australia was under the Whitlam government, and it was very hard to get into uni. They had to restrict it by having high entrance scores. And then, of course, if you took the course and you flunked it, you got kicked straight out. That's the only way you can do it if you want to make it free. All right. So another Greens policy, they want an extra $7.7 billion to boost paid parental leave. So that would take the current length of leave, which is 26 weeks. They would double that and make it 52 weeks by 2030. How about that? So if you have a kid, you get a whole year of parental leave.
Seems pretty bloody nice.
It does, and again, it seems pretty unsustainable.
Ooh. Actually having a chance to bring up your kids. I have to say that I can't put a price on that first bloody year of hot swapping the kid when it's crying. I
No,
can
I
see,
mean,
why it's going to be a very popular pitch.
look, I used to say that I was against dads having leave because I said, really it should be the mum who should stay home. I've changed that position now because, well, I've gotten to know a lot of dads, and they still will get woken up at 2 a.m. by that baby crying. It doesn't discriminate. So yeah, definitely the dad needs to be given a bit of a break as well. But I don't know, man. Like a whole year, like both parents not working. Like I like the idea of it, but like, is that sustainable in our economy? I don't know.
Economically, no. Fucking lifestyle of being able to raise that bloody kid and not just chuck it in front of the telly. Couldn't put a price on it.
Yeah. Okay, so Peter Dutton would reinstate the activity test for parents wanting to access childcare. I believe that just means like means testing it, making sure that you should actually be eligible for the subsidies that are involved. This I just completely oppose. I just don't think childcare should be given any funding whatsoever. Because this just, it's like dump your kids with glorified babysitters while you go to work all day. That's what it means.
You're not going to earn enough that day to dump them with it. Bloody school kind of does that, but you're just not going to be able to earn enough to bloody $80 an hour, more than 80, probably $100 an hour. You're not earning that fucking money.
Right. And so, I mean, yeah, before your kid goes to kindy or pre-primary school or whatever, yeah, basically the mother should be staying at home with that child, I think, until then, the first few years of their lives. Just quickly on gambling, we've talked before about how the top people in Australian gambling, they're stationed in Darwin because the Northern Territory has like the most relaxed gambling laws in the country. Now, to give you an idea of that, online gambling in Australia continues to be regulated by 6 people in the Northern Territory, several of whom actually have links to the gambling industry itself. Now, so you've got the Northern Territory Racing and Wagering Commission, the NTRWC.
The Racing Commission.
They've defended their role as de facto regulator, even though it has a robust conflict of interest. It says
the conflict of interest is through the roof. However,
they have processes in place to deal with those conflicts of interest. Now, what has actually happened here is members of that regulator have been caught receiving gifts from the gambling industry. And the chair of the NTRWC, which apparently regulates 36 Australian bookmakers, had to admit that he actually attended the Darwin Cup as a guest of gambling companies.
damn it.
Right.
Just having a laugh at this point.
Yeah, no, this is so ridiculous. You have to laugh at it. So in other words, the very people who are supposed to be cracking down on gambling practices in this country are actually getting bribed by the industry.
Fox is in the fucking hen house. Don't worry about it.
Yes,
All right,
exactly.
so whose house is getting firebombed when people say that they don't want this anymore?
Yeah. Friendly Geordies won't touch this.
I think you fucking learned.
Okay, just last story. This is on live exports. The coalition is looking basically to overturn Labor's timeline of slowly phasing out the live export trade, which means sending live animals overseas to be slaughtered. But something a lot of people don't realize is that nearly 5 years ago, the cattle industry actually won a class action against the Commonwealth and their live export ban back in 2011. So people remember back then, Julia Gillard actually imposed a ban outright. But apparently, all these years on, compensation still has not flowed to hundreds of people involved in that.
They're just draining of their blood, even though they fucking won the case, huh?
Yes, and the government is still in a position where it is offering money, offering like deals, but the claimants are saying that those amounts are just insulting. So they're now taking it back to the federal court to get what they deserve, to actually get
They're probably going to win that. Yeah, basically, federal court's going to be looking at it and say, holy shit, what the fuck are you doing to these people? Give them the big bucks.
Yes.
But what money do they have to go to the fucking federal court?
Yep.
Yeah, fuck.
So, yeah. Whoa, guys. There you go. We've given you a 3.5 hour episode, considering we missed one. So there you go. We hope we covered that 9 or so days of Australian politics well for you. We will have one episode before the election, which we'll do sometime next week. We'll probably do it Monday. And then, of course, we'll give you live election coverage. Hopefully get a few guests on as well.
Make it a party.
Yeah, we will, I bet. It's the grand final of Australian politics. Always an exciting day. So yeah, check us out at theracer.biz. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.